It's taken a turn for the chilly, but you know what will heat us up? Why? The last set of chapters for Volume 7 of Heaven Official's Blessing! How are we at the end of Volume 7 already? How? I don't know. This feels so weird. I feel like Volume 6 lasted an eternity with all of the sadness, and this volume has been just pure chaos, and it's just gone by like that, and then it's done, and we have one volume left. It's the shortest volume of them all, and I'm not ready to be done with Heaven Official's Blessing. But here's the deal. I've done the math. We have this week, which is the last week. We're going to go over Volume 7. Next week, we're starting Volume 8 upon Christmas Day, or upon New Year's Day if you're watching on YouTube only. And then altogether, I've done the math and I've sorted Volume 8 out. There's going to be 9 weeks of Volume 8. 9. So, but I am going to, I've talked with the moderators and I've thought about it. I think I may try to do reactions to the audio drama episodes that are available. I know that the week after I finish Volume 8, I'm going to be looking at the extras, the revisions. When it gets closer, I'll talk to Reiki on Patreon about those, so please don't tell me about them. Wait till I get to those. And then if I have time, I would like to react to the audio drama volumes that are out there. I think that right now there's only 3 or 4 audio drama episodes and like 2 extras that are available, but I would like to give those a shot. I know I've reacted to 1 episode, but this is the re-release, so I'll probably go back and listen to it again, and the extra with it. And then we will start Scum Villain Self-Saving System, the final MXTX novel of the trilogy. I've saved the oldest for last. I want to know nothing about it. Tell me nothing about Scum Villain. I know nothing about it. I have managed this entire time to know nothing about that series. I want to go in 1000% blind. I will not read it if you spoil it, so please don't. I'm being as blunt as I can be. Don't tell me like, oh, Scum Villain is about this, or save your peace, save your thoughts. Please don't. But I'll be doing that after Heaven Official's Blessing. And you think I would be sad that we only have, after this week, 9 more weeks with the novel series, and then we'll talk about the editions and all that fun stuff. But I'm not as sad about it as I am like when I finished Modao Zushi, because Modao Zushi, I've still got to go back and look at the manhwa chapters that have been finished. But aside from that, I watched The Untamed, I did the novel, I did the audio drama, I did the donghua, I did the full thing, and I completely finished Modao Zushi, and I felt really sad for a long time afterwards. And if I didn't have this to immediately follow it, I think I would have been really, really sad. But I don't feel sad about there being 9 weeks left, because there's still the live action that they're doing. There's still the audio drama they've got to finish. There's still the donghua that they'll have to finish. So I don't feel sad that we're finishing the main story. I'm excited that we'll have all the other adaptations to look at when they arrive. So that's going to be really exciting. And at that point, we can just celebrate. I can talk to the donghua only people and try to lie my way into not knowing what's happening. And then in the spoiler corner be like, like this. So that's really exciting to me. So I'm looking forward to it. So I'm not sad that I'm finishing Heaven Official's Blessing. I'm excited to finally get some answers and to finally see where the story goes, right? I'm excited for that, and then I'm really excited for the other adaptations that are to come. And I'm really excited for Scum Villain. Scum Villain's been sitting back there for a while. Haven't touched it. Really excited. There's 4 volumes there. Plore is going to be the moderator for that series. I'm really, really excited. Know nothing about it. Want to know nothing about it. But yeah, so as far as this chapter set, the last chapter set, chapter 225, ended the exact same way that chapter 222 ended. Chapter 222 ended with, I don't know, will Pei Ming give away will he go stop the array? Oh no, didn't happen. And then this last chapter ended with Jun Wu being like, well, fudge it, I'm just gonna go do it myself and leave to go to the array. And I'm like, wait, why? No. So last week's chapter said, I'm not gonna lie, it took a lot out of me. It was really, really action-packed. There was so much happening. I was like, why are we at Blackwater Lair? What's going on? Why are there dueling Voltrons and divine statues? Chan Yishan, are you okay? Where's Pei Ming and Banyu and Pei Su? Rong, what's happening? It was a lot. It was a lot. And I had to take a week off. Unfortunately, Billy has decided to not update the Manhwa chapter this weekend as well, for reasons I don't know. So hopefully we'll get to start off on Christmas Day or New Year's Day with a brand new Manhwa chapter as well as Volume 8, but we'll see. But in either case, the Donghua started back up, and we're on the last set of chapters for Volume 7. Now, I decided to read all these chapters together. This is kind of unprecedented, but we're actually going to be doing chapters 226, 227, 228, 229, and 230. A 5-chapter set that runs about 50 pages. That's a lot. Luckily, it's not that late at night right now, so I was like, I blocked out, I was going to react to something else tonight, and then I thought about it, and I was like, oh, crud, I have 5 chapters to read. It's the end of the book. It's this big old chunk right here. So I was like, I need some time. I'm recording this on a Sunday night. You need to record Heaven Official's Blessing on a weekend. Trying to do it during a weekday at night when you have to work the next morning, not a good idea. You need to watch like a short series for that. This one is like dedication. So I'm really excited to see how we finish this novel up. I've thought about the cover, and unless we get the actual scene of them practicing calligraphy together, which I don't think is going to happen in this chapter set because things are pretty chaotic, I feel as if this cover is just mainly referring to Hua Chong and Shilian being in harmony and being happy with themselves. Like, Shilian's come out to his uncle figure and told Mei Nianqing, being like, yeah, I love him. Mei Nianqing's like, him? Okay. But it all works out, and everybody kind of knows Shilian's with him. It's great. Everybody's fine with it. Pei Ming's still the fan club president. It's just a great all-around experience. So I'm really, really excited next week to get into Volume 8. I can't believe we're at this point. When I was doing the Donghua right now is going over Volume 2, and I remember back when I was at Volume 2 thinking, I have no clue what it will be like by the time we get to Volume 7. Like, what all could happen between Volume 2 and Volume 7? What all could happen? Not much, right? The scale of this story and the scope is incredible, and I've loved it every step of the way. So we're going to be looking at chapters 226 to 230, finishing out pages 293 to 240 of Heaven Official's Blessing. Y'all, it's going to be crazy putting Volume 7 up, but it's got to happen. So I'm not going to waste any more time. We're going to dive right in and see what all we get. So we're going to start this chapter set of Heaven Official's Blessing and see what we get here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. In chapter 226, the burning flames of karma. Demonic god descends upon royal capital. Bring it, MXTX. Bring it. Now, karma, burning flames of karma. That could mean that something bad could happen to Jun Wu. Maybe. But demonic god descends. Demonic god is such a phrase. Descends upon royal capital. All right. Seems rather self-explanatory. They must hurry to the royal capital. Yes, please. You don't have to worry about the aftermath here. They will take care of themselves, Hua Chong said. The Goshi placed Yin Yu's body on the back of one of the fish bones, and that fish bone carried the bone skull dragon, the dragon skull, along with Chan Yijin and Yin Yu, and swam into the distance. Oh, let them be together. But even though Yin Yu's a corpse, so what do we do with that? Meanwhile, the other bonefish went to pick at the bone dragon bones that fell apart and puzzled them back together, slowly repairing them. It seemed they would certainly take care of themselves. Okay, so the bone dragons, even though they all got disassembled, they're like the toys in Toy Story. They just put themselves back together in Sid's play yard and just manage it somehow. There wasn't a moment to waste, and without another word, Shilian immediately directed that giant divine statue to fly towards the sky. The heavenly officials all called out, "Your Highness, where are you going? You can't be thinking of chasing him. We just finally escaped. We have to pursue him," Shilian said. "He's gone somewhere heavily populated. There's no more time. Everyone, please hang on tight." I like how the heavenly officials were like, "No, don't do it." And Shilian's like, did you all forget your jobs? We have to pursue him. A dice rolled out between Hua Chong's fingers. Aha! And he said with a low voice, "Gege, are you ready?" You ready for this? Shilian nodded. Huachong tossed that dice out and said, distance shortening array, activate. Yeah, because the giant divine statue restored all of its spiritual powers and charged upwards with all of its strength. As expected, after traversing through the clouds, they could see the black expanse of the horizon reflected with the vibrant crimson of that fiery demonic giant. They had also come to the skies of the royal capital. When the crowd down on the ground saw such a flaming monster suddenly appear in the sky, slowly descending, coming closer towards them, some were stunned, some started screaming, and some were so terrified they almost ran. Shi Qingchong also sucked in a few cold breaths, but he quickly snapped out of it, yelling with all he had into the crowd, "It's all right! Nobody panic! It won't come down! Someone will stop it! There are gods above helping us!" Is that really true, old Fang? It won't be funny if such a huge monster comes smacking down at us. Shi Qingchong laughed wildly. It's true! Don't you see that I'm here too? If anyone is to die, I will die first! He was panicking so hard that he'd lost his mind again. Shilian directed the giant divine statue to fly over, dodging the firewalls that the giant was spouting, and grabbed onto that fiery demonic giant, desperately pulling upwards so that it wouldn't keep going closer to the ground. All the while he was shouting, "Everyone go down quickly!" The heavenly officials were also scared to death by the way that Shilian was controlling the divine statue, and couldn't wait to get off, so they all hastily jumped off like ducklings, like dumplings. Oh, dumplings! The moment they landed and saw Shi Qingchong, everyone was taken aback. Lord Windmaster, why are you here? Why are you like this? I like that they instantly recognized him and Shilian, did not. Shi Qingchong was overjoyed. Oh, don't ask so many questions. Come, join us quickly. Join the human array and help hold it up. We can't let the resentful spirits inside break out. The majority of the heavenly officials were hesitant, and it was Long Qianshu who rushed out first. I'll give you a hand. This is such a contrast to when Jun Wu was trying to do the bridge and no one would help him. But here, they're all coming together to help against Jun Wu. With someone taking the lead, the other heavenly officials finally joined in one after the other. The human array was expanded and strengthened once again and became much more secure. Shilian only just sighed a breath of relief and continued to pull the fiery demonic giant upwards when he heard a large crackling noise. The fiery demonic giant actually broke into parts again. One of its legs broke away from the body and flew downwards. Even with just a leg, it could crush and kill a significant number. Not just the human array, perhaps the entire street could be destroyed. Yet unexpectedly, that leg had only dropped halfway down when suddenly it broke into several pieces and exploded into midair. Millions of glittering sparks brought tiny specks that melted into the darkness and spread across the entire sky, like the dust of smoke raining down after magnificent fireworks, completely harmless. Shilian wondered, why would it explode on its own? Just then, a figure appeared in the midst of those fireworks and started heading upwards against the current of the air. After a few hops, it landed upon the body of the fiery demonic giant. Shilian looked closer and exclaimed in delight, General Pei! You're all right! Oh, thank goodness! He was already prepared to perform a service for General Pei Ming! Yeah, Pei Ming wielded a sword in one hand, and the other was smoothing his locks back, his hair perfect, his charm unruffled. Not quite all right, but mostly all right. Ah! Still not cooked after being roasted and boiled, martial gods certainly possessed very stubborn life forces. Shilian asked, where's Banyu and Pei Su? They're fine, Huachong said. Gege, look, they're over there. Oh. Shilian turned his head and looked. Sure enough, in the distance, Banyu brought Pei Su as they landed on top of the roof of a house. It seemed like the palace of Mingguang was sealed down tight and the boiling black seawater didn't pour in completely, so everyone was mostly fine. Well, Shilian then asked, where's Shanji and the others? A voice spoke up proudly. Of course they were defeated by me. That voice had come from Pei Ming's hand. And only then did Shilian notice that the sword in Pei Ming's grip was actually Mingguang. Oh, General Pei, you actually dare wield the sword Mingguang? He asked. This is more complicated, Pei Ming said. Rong Guang, however, chuckled. Oh, how is it complicated? Wasn't it only you kneeling down before me to apologize, to say you were wrong, and begging me for forgiveness? Oh, it feels great. It feels amazing. Shilian figured most of it out then. It was most likely that before the three demons and ghosts could actually kill, they started fighting amongst themselves over unfair distribution. Rong won overwhelmingly and kicked Shanji and Kamo aside, and then it was rumbling outside, the ground moving and flying, the situation dire, but they couldn't break out. Their only chance was joining forces. Rong forced Pei Ming to admit his wrongs, and when Pei Ming did as he wished and apologized, he was elated. What? The fiery demonic giant was angry, even having lost a leg, and leisurely started to reconstruct itself. The other boulders and golden palaces moved towards the crack, and it didn't take long before it was fully rebuilt. It was still a giant, just a bit smaller in size. Pei Ming gripped the sword Mingguang and charged towards the great martial hall. Shilin exclaimed, "Oh, General Pei, be careful!" However, with the sword Mingguang in hand, Pei Ming's attacking power suddenly exploded. Right, because he hasn't had a weapon this entire time. Although Rongguang's character was awful and astray, it certainly was worthy as his old subordinate, and the two knew how to work together best. Chuan Yizhen hadn't gotten anywhere close to the great martial hall before he was smacked, but Pei Ming charged much further than him, storming straight into the great martial hall directly. Inside, the sword Rongguang was scolding as it fought. "Do you see? I told you if the two of us got together, we'd be invincible. Nothing can stand in our way. If you had listened to me, then why would you still be only a mere General Mingguang after so many centuries?" Veins popped on Pei Ming's forehead. "Can you stop talking?" Qirong was hiding by the great martial hall and shouted arrogantly, "Oh, frickin' man whore! I suggest you don't come up here to seek your death!" Mingguang slapped over with a sound. "Pa, what the hell is this green thing? Don't block the way!" Qirong almost spun a few times from the strike, and Guzi hugged his leg to steady him with difficulty, asking worriedly, "Oh, Dad, are you all right?" Qirong had lost his face in front of Guzi and was outraged, but seeing how Pei Ming was bursting with killing intent, he wasn't tough enough to face him head on. Still, his mouth was tough. "Oh, using underhanded moves again!" Yet unexpectedly, Guzi didn't respond, and instead he slumped to the ground in a heap. When Qirong looked down, Guzi wasn't moving. He glared as he picked Guzi up, shaking him by the collar back and forth wildly. "Foolish son, what are you playing at?" Guzi seemed to have fallen asleep, his eyes shut, his forehead burning. Shi Lian was still pulling strenuously at that fiery demonic giant, but he also noticed the situation below. He shouted, "Qirong! Why haven't you left? That place is still burning, going up and down the sky and into the waters. That child is too young. He'll die." Qirong looked up to cuss. "Don't you dare lecture me! Who are you bluffing? This brat is cheaply raised. How can he die so easily? Think I can't tell you want to trick me into leaving? The moment I leave, you'll definitely kill me." It's a folk belief that a cheap and vulgar life will last longer. Even if Shi Lian didn't make a move, Lan Chanchu was still waiting down below. On the other end, Pei Ming and Jun Wu had already started fighting. The flames of war would singe Qirong time and time again, and he'd scream, jumping all over to evade. Shi Lian exclaimed angrily, "You're a ghost, and even you can't stand this fire. You expect a child to take it?" Tucked under Qirong's arm, Guzi was burning bright red, but Qirong's mouth was tough. "Well, I won't go! I won't go! Ah!" The throwing flame came lunging, blowing right into his face, and Qirong crawled and stumbled in a circle once before he leapt up, unable to hold back his complaint. Jun Wu, you the boss man, can your fire not burn this viciously? You've burnt this, me!" Shilin could sense that he wanted to say, "Jun Wu, you old thug, you've burnt this ancestor." But valuing his life, he didn't dare say those words out loud. As if Jun Wu would care, he was currently fighting with Pei Ming, a creepy smile hanging on his face. The fires around Qirong were growing bigger and bigger, and there was practically no place left to stand. While he was a demon and couldn't die from burning, it was still torture. Soon after, Guzi, who was tucked under his arm, also let out a tormented shriek like he was singed by the fire. Qirong raised him up to check, and sure enough, Guzi's forehead was all bloody, and a big hole was burnt through his robe, revealing a burnt shoulder. Guzi was roused forcefully by the burns, and he started bawling, crying that he didn't know anything. Hugging Qirong, "Dad, it hurts, I'm scared!" Cold sweat was rolling non-stop down Qirong's forehead, his lips frozen, not knowing what to say. Guzi covered his wound with his hands, snotty and weepy, and he asked, "Dad, are we going to burn to death here?" Qirong stuttered, Guzi sniffed, "Well, even though your domain here is very beautiful, it doesn't seem too great. The people here don't seem to be good to us. Why don't we find a different place to live?" Rong couldn't take it anymore. He charged into the hall, wanting to grab for Jun Wu, but he didn't dare go close, so he yelled from afar, "Oh, let's talk, Boss man! It's fine if you want to keep setting fires. This is your territory anyway. Set off whatever you want, but..." Shilian was going to fall off the jaded crown platform from anger by his foolish act. "Don't go there to seek your death. Just come down. I promise not to touch you." Rong wouldn't listen to him at all. Seeing Jun Wu was ignoring him, completely uncaring for his existence, and with Guzi crying so soundly, he probably felt he was losing face in front of his cheap son again, so he rushed over to yell, "Well, what's with your temper? I told you to stop the burning. Didn't you hear me? Rong!" Shilian shouted. Before Rong even got close, Jun Wu raised a hand. A ball of fire instantly surrounded his entire person. Rong let out a shrieking cry. Shilian shouted, "Guzi!" Not worried about Rong. With such a huge fire, even if Rong didn't burn to dregs, his spirit would greatly be damaged. And wouldn't Guzi be burnt to ashes directly? Pei Ming also saw that Rong had a small child under his arms and had the mind to rescue them, but Jun was gaining the upper hand and he couldn't get away. And after counting the time in his head, they were probably beyond saving. My lord, it was but a child. There wasn't a need to be so vicious. But both Shilian and Pei Ming knew there was no longer any child in Jun Wu's eyes. The only things he could see were enemies and those in his way. An arm swung out and a ball of raging fire lunged, and it was sent flying, taking Pei Ming along. Many of the heavenly officials down below exclaimed in alarm, "General Pei is caught on fire!" Right then, the torrential rain came pouring down, and while it didn't put out the flames of war on the body of the giant, it extinguished the flames on Pei Ming's body. Within the crowd, a black shadow leapt into the sky and caught the falling Pei Ming. "Oh, is it Yushi? Oh, please let it be her! Please!" Ah! Ah! Chapter 227, Burning Flames of Karma. The demonic god descends upon the royal capital too. "Lord Rainmaster!" Shilian called out. Oh my god. The Rainmaster was riding the black ox, her head held high, and she inclined her head in greeting towards him. Pei Ming was carried on the ox behind her, having been burnt by raging fires and drenched into a drowned rat by the pouring rain. His hair was a complete mess, an utter bundle of misery. When he blearily blinked open his eyes, he realized it was actually the Rainmaster who had caught him. And although the others were wholly focused on driving the ox, not looking at him at all, nonetheless, his current state of not handsomeness was exposed to everyone, and he felt rather embarrassed, immediately standing up. "Lord..." Yet unexpectedly, the moment he opened his mouth, a ring of black smoke spewed from his mouth. Rong was enraged. "I can't believe you needed a woman to save you, and it's Yushi Huang, too. Pei Ming, you're such an embarrassment." Pei Ming was vexed, and when he opened his mouth, another string of smoke rings came out. "Can you shut up?" On the other end, Pei Su and Banyu welcomed the Rainmaster, who smoothly landed and was supporting Pei Ming upright. On this end, upon the body of that fiery demonic giant, millions of bits of rubble were rolling down. The falling rocks were still burning in blazing fires, each crashing towards the ground rapidly like a meteor shower. The rain enveloping the skies was coming down harder, but the fires refused to be extinguished. It seemed Jun Wu had strengthened the spiritual powers within the flames. Even if the raindrops could put out the fires, it'd be useless. Since giant boulders would still fall to the ground, and the royal capital would no doubt suffer thousands of giant craters, killing and wounding a great number. Nevertheless, this giant divine statue was pulling strenuously at the giant, so Shilian couldn't break away, and he didn't know how many martial gods were present, whether they could catch the rocks without fail. Terribly anxious, Shilian turned to Hua Chong. "So long, what?" Hua Chong was standing right behind him and placed his hand over Shilian's. "There's no need for Gege to worry. Just focus on hanging on here and don't mind what goes on below." His voice was right next to Shilian's ear, his breath warm and gentle, and he flicked his chin slightly, gesturing for Shilian to look. Shilian gazed to the direction Hua Chong was pointing and saw that from the outside of the human array there was a red-clad figure who was approaching slowly, his hands behind his back. Shilian squinted and felt himself turning dumbfounded. "That's Hua Chong! Another Hua Chong!" What was going on? Shilian whipped around. Wasn't Hua Chong standing right behind him? Hua Chong chuckled lightly. "Don't be so alarmed, Gege. This one here is the real San Long. No lie. Exchange if fake." Ah, the callback! Then, the one down there was the clone that Hua Chong had left behind when he left. No wonder Jun Wu hadn't suspected that Hua Chong snuck into the heavenly capital earlier. Okay, yes. And here Shilian was actually puzzled over whether Jun Wu had eyes watching down there. Perhaps it wasn't that he wasn't monitoring, but that under his watch, Hua Chong was still guarding the royal capital, so of course he wouldn't suspect anything. Shi Qingchong didn't have the time to look at the sky and didn't see Shi Lian and Hua Chong up there either. When he saw a Hua Chong come by, he quickly called out, "Oh, Crimson Rain's hot flower! You finally come back! What the heck were you doing leaving for so long? Have you thought of a way to connect to His Highness?" No, you best think of a way to help me deal with the situation down here first. Do you see all those fiery rocks coming down from the sky? Think fast, blow a breath, or make those endless little butterflies go up and chase them away or something, otherwise we'll die. Hua Chong didn't speak a word, coldly allowing Shi Qingchong to say that giant pile of words in one breath. Finally, as if he was growing impatient listening, he cut him off directly. "Deal with it yourself." Shi Qingchong explained, "I'll deal with it myself. Don't joke at a time like this. I'm not His Highness. I can't understand your jokes. How do I deal with these rocks on my own?" Before he finished his sentence, Hua Chong seized the back of his collar and yanked him out of the human array directly. Shi Qingchong reacted amazingly fast. The moment he left the array, he pulled the people on his left and right together so the chain wasn't broken. Yet unexpectedly, after Hua Chong had pulled him out, he wasn't done. A hand came swinging, smacked him, and sent him flying out. The beggars were all shocked. "Old Fang!" Someone complained loudly. "Hua Chong, what are you doing hitting people?" Although Shi Qingchong was sent flying, he only tumbled and rolled a few times. Sprawled on the ground, he immediately crawled up. It's fine. I didn't die. He didn't really hit me. He was just lending spiritual powers." Really? I love that that's how he does it for him. Shi Qingchong examined his hands and looked at his own body, which was emitting spiritual light from head to toe. "Hua Chongzhu, there's no need to be like this, even if you can't see His Highness. If you were lending spiritual powers, then do it nicely. I don't mind eating a few more of those weird tasting candies. There's no need to hit people, all right? Why don't you just focus a bit more on the sky instead? There's still so many rocks up there." Just then, Hua Chong flung out his right hand and tossed something at him. Without thinking, Shi Qingchong raised his hand to catch, but what he saw when he caught it, his entire face blanched. It was the Windmaster fan. Seeing this, Shi Lian on top of the divine statue couldn't hold back and asked, "So long, wasn't the Windmaster fan with the one down there is..." "Pay it no mind," Hua Chong said. "I called him over at the last minute to lend a hand." "Oh, it's Heshan! Oh! Oh, Xing Qingchong was clutching that dearly familiar fan, his neck stiff, and he slowly turned to that Hua Chong. Hua Chong then repeated coldly, "Deal with it yourself." That flaming meteor shower was about to crash to the ground, and the people within the human array could practically feel the heat waves surging at their faces, sweating both cold and hot sweat. "Old Fang, what you said is true, right? Will everything be all right?" The heavenly officials also cried out, "Your Highness, can you please quickly think of a way?" Shi Qingchong gripped the fan, the veins popping on the back of his hands. Strings of blood crawled over his eyes. A moment later, he whipped around and swung his arm. A whirlwind gusted from the flat ground and charged towards the sky. The flaming meteor shower instantly made a U-turn and flew towards the heavens. The beggars were originally scared half to death and seemed to have already prepared to flee at a moment's notice, but they were all completely blown away by the wild wind, their eyes bulging, their mouths hanging, thoroughly shocked. It was a moment before they uttered, "A god!" Someone called out, "My God, Old Fang, could you actually be a real god?" Having swung the fan, Shi Qingchong's hand was still shaking. He was panting heavily, and it was a good while before his senses returned. He replied arduously, "Duh, didn't I tell you all a long time ago? How's that? Didn't I say I wasn't bullshitting? No, bull, I believe you now. Wow, Old Fang is a god. Let's say we know a god. Now we've struck it rich. Ha 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 ha. Old Fang, let's talk. Take us flying when you've got the time sometimes. Hey." Seeing all this, Hua Chong humphed softly, turning around to leave. Shi Qingchong was still gripping the Windmaster fan, answering the other's jokes absent-mindedly, the colors on his face going red and white. Cold sweat dripped from his forehead. He looked up seemingly wanting to question, but the person was already long gone. Just then, from within the darkness, a distance away from the human array, there came a new strange voices. Squeaking. Those with sharp eyes cried, "What's that? Those furry rats! And what's with the people in the back? People! They're ashen white people. They don't look alive." "What?" Shi Lian gaped. It was the corpse-eating rats and the empty-shelled people. Those monsters from Mount Tonglu had been transported here. The empty-shelled people wobbled, walking over with stiffened limbs, and the corpse-eating rats that survived on human flesh also swarmed over like a black tide. It appeared that Jun Wu had stopped caring for anything, stopping at nothing to destroy the human array, willing to bring total chaos to the mortal realm no matter what. On the other side, the Rainmaster instructed Banyu and the others, "Watch over General Pei. I will go protect the array." General Pei was lying there puffing black smoke for a while, but when he heard, he got up again. "I'm fine! I can go protect the array!" Then he tried struggling to crawl up, but ended up falling back down again. Even Pei Su couldn't watch anymore. "Oh, let it go, General. Just mind your wounds. Let the Lord Rainmaster go take care of it." This was probably the first time that Pei Ming had been so humiliated in front of a woman. And it was also the first time he had also been saved by a woman. He couldn't tell if he was angry or if it was his pride throwing a fit, but his face was swelling. The Rainmaster ignored his opinion and smiled. "There's no need for the general to push himself." Then she left, riding the black ox. "Lord Rainmaster!" Pei Ming called. Just then another hand came crawling up, catching his neck. A voice came hauntingly, "Oh, Pei, darling." Pei Ming was still struggling strenuously, and the moment he heard this voice, he was exasperated. "Why are you still around?" Shanji had actually been around from the beginning, since Banyu had taken her and Kamo, who had both been injured by Rong. Hearing that Pei Ming's tone was unkind, she instantly turned malicious. "Why am I still here? I've always been here. What are you doing? Staring at Rainmaster? Have you changed your affections? You want to go chase after her now, huh? What's so good about her? I won't allow it." Pei Ming finally couldn't endure any longer. He shoved her away and exclaimed angrily, "Shanji, why does your brain only think of things like this? Even at a time like this, it has nothing to do with changing affections. I've barely exchanged words with the Rainmaster." This was the first time he moved against Shanji, and Shanji was harshly shoved onto the ground, completely stunned. It was a good while before she said incredulously, "Pei, darling, I think of you because I love you. Is that so wrong? You've never been so mean to me before. Do you really hate me so much?" Pei Ming used the sword to help himself stand up. "I can't get through to you." Shanji still wouldn't give up. "Tell me, are you really going to leave me? I've done so much for you. Aren't you touched at all? Seeing me become like this, don't you feel guilty at all? Haven't I told you hundreds of years ago already?" Pei Ming shouted. Shanji was stunned and dumbfounded. She didn't know what to do, but her hands tangled the hems of his robes in a death grip, hopping staggeringly with her broken legs. "Oh, Pei, darling, wait, why don't we talk a bit more?" Banyu watched her. While she knew it was Pei Ming who had abandoned Shanji first, this female ghost had also killed countless after, and tried to kill them time and time again. Still, looking like this, she was a little pitiful. Pei Ming looked back at her, and in the end he only said, "Shanji, it's time you wake up." "Wake up what?" Shanji was confused. "That you've become this way. I'm part of the reason, but a majority of it is by your own decisions. You've done so much, but you can only move your own heart. I'm a steel-hearted man. Rather than love me, why don't you go love yourself?" He yanked back his robes from Shanji's hold and left without looking back. At the human array, after Shi Qingshang had swung the fan, he didn't have much spiritual power left. After a mess of panic, they could only have the Rainmaster and several of the martial gods go in to fend first. Yet unexpectedly, right then, there was a rowdy commotion coming from all around. "Quack, quack, this is the royal capital! Quack, such big houses, quack!" "What fuss you're making! Chongju's houses are bigger. Yeah, they're not as pretty as Chongju's houses either." From the ends of the streets, the alleyways, the eaves, all sorts of weird-shaped heads appeared. Extremely lively. All of a sudden, all the monsters and ghosts from the ghost city had swarmed out. When Heaven's Eye and company within the human race saw, they shouted impatiently, "Oh, what's with those goats? Go away! Go back! We're at the foot of the emperor! How dare you all come mess about at the royal capital? You pig spirit, you dare show your face in front of me? I'm not hallucinating, am I? That's a duck baiting a rat!" Instantly, a round of graveside apples were slung over. "Shut up, you nasty cultivator. We're giving you some face here, so shameless. If it wasn't on Chongju's orders, who'd want to come? Why don't you kneel and thank us?" The eyes of those corpse-eating rats that had swarmed in like a black tide were flashing red, yet the situation was playing out much differently than they had expected. when they came charging murderously. A band of monsters and demons, much bigger than they were, came to greet them. The band was smashing and stabbing randomly with pitchforks and rakes like they were starving, with an even more vicious red light flashing from their eyes. So many rats! Come, come, come! I've been waiting for a long time for you. I've never had aperitifs that have been aged 2,000 years. It must be super flavorful. Can we eat all this? Tonglu said if we can't eat them all, we can sell them. Those corpse-eating rats saw the situation going downhill and retreated in terror. The empty-shelled people were tripped by the rats who had lost their heads. The dire situation was instantly dispelled, and Shilian sighed again in relief, turning his head back. Thank goodness for so long. Huachong smiled. They wanted to come themselves. It has nothing to do with me. Rather than this, Gege, be careful. His tone had suddenly turned serious at the last two words. Shilian moved his gaze back and saw the fiery demonic giant was making a new move, placing its hand by its waist as if it was going to pull something out. Shilian's heart lurched. It was a sword. What is happening? We still have 3 chapters left. Chapter 228, Burning Flames of Karma, the demonic god descends upon the royal capital, part 3. Even in its current state, the giant was already a handful. If there was now a sword, wasn't it no different than giving wings to tigers? Shilian felt a sense of foreboding and yelled to the people below, "Everyone be careful!" The ghosts were just the heat of beating down the rats, and having heard him, they all looked up, exclaiming, "Oh, what a giant grand uncle! Oh no, Xi Daozhong! Chongju looks like he's having a good time up there, Quack! Oh, we're not playing around," Shilian said! I love how the ghosts just love Shilian. They're totally in on him and Huachong being together. I love it. But before he finished his sentence, the flaming sharp sword covered with murderous aura came slashing down. Shilian released his hands, barely dodging the attack, and felt alarmed by the aura of the sword and the heat wave of the strike. The divine statue was already barely fending off the other, but now it was practically no match for it. Under such dire circumstances, he wanted to call forth a few martial gods to transform into a sword to help in spite of himself. But Chan Yijin was currently lying in the broken pieces of the bone dragon in the Blackwater's lair, cruising around to recover. Lan Chanshu was being used like he was 100 men, supporting the human array up against the resentful spirits that were rampaging harder. And Function and Mooching, for some reason, had been missing since they had arrived here. Only Pei Ming was free. Oh, I didn't realize Function and Mooching were missing. Okay. Only Pei Ming was free, but he was also cutting down the rats. Completely burnt black and spitting smoke rings, resolutely refusing to be shown up by the Rainmaster, so he was probably useless for the cause. There was actually no one Shilian could use. Just then, a voice came from the ground. "Well, just wait, Your Highness. Your sword will be here momentarily." The one who yelled was Goshi. Shilian rushed to the edge of the jaded crown platform. "Where's my sword?" Goshi circled his hands around his mouth and yelled, "The Crimson Rain Flower! Activate the distance shortening array! To Mount Tonglu! The sword is here!" Huachong resolutely tossed out dice and said, "Activate!" Above them, within the pitch-black layers of clouds, something was rumbling. A moment later, Shilian squinted as he gazed up. There really was a sword. The divine statue leapt up and reached for the long sword. But Shilian used both hands to grip the hand seal that he formed, and the giant divine statue also gripped the hilt in its hands and slashed towards the heavenly capital. The other also immediately raised its sword to parry the attack, yet when the two swords clashed, something that no one had imagined happened. The sword in Shilian's hand cut through the sword of the fiery giant. Amidst the earth-shattering sound of metal breaking, the fiery demonic giant came to an abrupt stop. Then suddenly it broke into several pieces, and soon after, it fell rapidly towards the ground. Shilian had never expected that this sword was this powerful. A one-strike knockout? He stared at the sword in his hands of the giant divine statue, completely stunned. Scintillating and fine, exceedingly sharp. What was this sword? Is it made from the mountains? Then he remembered the Goshi told Huachong to open the distance shortening array to Mount Tonglu, and it dawned on him. This was a sword forged by the bodies of the 3 mountain spirits! Yes! Yes! But he had no time to think more on it. If that giant thing had crashed down, it wasn't going to be funny. Shilian immediately directed the giant divine statue to fly down, holding that gigantic boulder that was about to fall apart. They changed course, moving at some distance away before carefully landing in a place much further away and more rural. Only then did the giant divine statue sheathe the sword back in its waist and stand in place, a hand resting on the sword, while the other opened a palm to reveal the two figures, as if it were holding a flower. It stopped moving, its smile back on its face as it returned to the posture of the flower-crowned martial god. Not a single falling rock crashed to the ground. Everyone at the royal capital was completely unharmed. It was a good moment before all the people, gods, and ghosts looked at each other. Is it over? Huachong and Shilian hopped off from the palm of the giant divine statue and met up with everyone. Shi Qingchong's cold sweat had already turned into a hot sweat, and he tucked the Windmaster fan that had once again broken after one use at his waist. Hobbling and wobbling, hopping and dragging, he skipped over. "Oh, Your Highness, is it over? Is everything taken care of?" A few of the other heavenly officials gathered over too. "Where's the Jun Wu? Your Highness, have you defeated him? Is he dead?" On the side go, she said, "How can that be? His Highness, he wouldn't have been defeated so easily." Huachong extended a hand out to Shilian. "Gege, let's go up to search." Shilian nodded and gave him his hand. Huachong gently pulled him to the top of the wreckage. The ghost had already lost interest in the corpse. The ghost had already lost interest in the corpse-eating rats that had been beaten and then fled in a flurry. And so they all jumped up too, vigorously babbling that they wanted to clean the heavenly capital out. But Huachong said, "Stay back. All irrelevant persons must not come close. Otherwise, if they really did bump into Jun Wu, it'd be certain death." Hearing this, the ghost could only jump back down, continuing to guard the bottom. However, within the former heavenly capital that had now been cut into wreckage, there was not a trace of Jun Wu. Shilian and Huachong looked all over and even raised the golden roof of the Great Martial Hall, but they didn't see anyone. Just then, Lan Chunshu suddenly turned to Pei Ming. "General Pei, I've got something to do. Please help me take over for a moment." The number of rats Pei Ming cut down couldn't match the Rainmaster's total, and he was feeling petulantly depressed. Now, he was being dragged over to uphold the array out of the blue. Still, he only rubbed his nose and didn't say much. Lan Chunshu leapt onto the wreckage and rummaged all over, and finally, after raising a caved-in roof, he exclaimed, "I found him!" Shilian heard him and went over. "Oh, Chunshu, be careful!" He had thought that Lan Chunshu had found Jun Wu. Yet unexpectedly, what he found was a ball of something charred black, like a worm shriveled in a giant shell. There was the tiny sound of coughing. Shilian felt his heart tighten and immediately peeled away this charred shell together with Lan Chunshu to see. A small child rolled out. He was curled up, hugging his head, his whole hot body red, probably from the burns, but his life was not in danger. He was still coughing. After he rolled out, a green ball of greasy ghost fire also creeped out, floating. "This is..." Lan Chunshu seized the ball of ghost fire with his hands, his eyes blowing flames. "The heavens have eyes, so Rong. You haven't died completely, and still ended up in my hands in the end." Rong had really become the night touring Green Lantern. Now that they thought back, when Jun Wu had shot out that trail of fire, Rong had protected Guzi, which is why this child didn't burn to death. Shilian was a little surprised, in spite of himself, after all, by Rong's character. If there was fire, it'd be more than his thing to throw Guzi in to shield himself. Huachong instantly knew what he was thinking and said even if he threw the child out to block the fire, it wouldn't do much. He'd burn to ash in an instant. To protect and to use as a shield isn't very different in his book. Even if that was the reason, he's still protected. Rong was burnt to nothing more than a green ball of greasy ghost fire, and he still didn't disperse, caught in Lan Chunshu's hands, and he started screaming in terror. Guzi, who they had just saved, was roused instantly, and he hugged Lan Chunshu. Like, "Oh, Gege, don't kill my dad!" Lan Chunshu exclaimed angrily, "Oh, let go! I'm telling you now, if you beg, it's useless. I won't show mercy." He then gripped harder. Rong was the enemy who annihilated his clan. Shilian couldn't interfere at all, but he was afraid that in Lan Chunshu's fury, he'd accidentally hurt Guzi. Shilian was going to pull Guzi away, yet unexpectedly, Guzi tackled over and hugged him. "Scrap Gege! Save my dad!" "Guzi, this isn't really your dad," Shilian said. "Can't you tell by the way he treats you?" However, Guzi said, "This is my dad. My dad didn't used to be good to me. But then after, he was really good to me. He'd often give me meat to eat, and he said that he would take me to live in big, beautiful mansions. He's really good to me, Scrap Gege. Will you please save him? Chirong started scolding. Oh, you foolish son, don't beg him. This black-hearted snow lotus won't save this ancestor. In fact, he can't wait for your old man to die. He doesn't care whether I live or die. Huachong side-eyed him. Are you worried that Long Chongchu can't kill you? So I have to be dragged in too? Chirong was still quite afraid of him, and the moment he spoke, the entire ball of ghost fire shriveled a bit. Nonetheless, he was going to die either way, so he stopped caring. Oh, Huachong, you fucker, I'm not afraid of you. Shilian, don't think I don't know. I took you for a god in the heavens, but you! What did you take me for? You never took me for anything. You ignore me, reject me, think I'm a fool, a madman, that I'm mental, look at me with contempt. You've always looked down on me. What right do you have to look down on me? You can't even destroy Youngin, you useless trash. You. Shilian only uttered one word while Huachong didn't move. Shilian could sense something, and he quickly pulled him back first. Never mind, drop it. Huachong didn't even want to bother with a fake smile and humphed. So what if he looks down on you? Is there anything about you worth high regard? Chirong was fuming and flustered. I spit at you, I spit! So what if you all look down on me? This ancestor has a son! Chirong started cackling maniacally. Even though he was picked up cheaply, at least it's still better than you bloodline-ending impotent cowards! Don't even dream of having one in 800 years! Shilian and Huachong watched him speechlessly. Huachong also didn't want to waste any more words on Chirong and only raised his brows at Shilian, mouthing the words, "You never know." This isn't Omegaverse, it's fine. Shilian knew he was only joking and smiled weakly. Yet unexpectedly, as he laughed, Chirong's mad laughter grew smaller and smaller. At last, the ball of green, greasy ghost fire that was jumping up and down had fizzled out. Long Chongchu didn't know whether Chirong's ghost fire was snuffed out on its own or if he was the one who had choked it out. And he stood there dumbfounded. Guzi was also dumbstruck, and he went to pull each of Long Chongchu's fingers open. But when he saw there was nothing, he fell to the ground and started digging at the pile of charred residue on the ground, scratching to the point that his hands were covered in black soot. But still there was no green light, so he couldn't help but clutch onto Long Chongchu's robe. Where's my dad? He begged Long Chongchu, but Long Chongchu didn't know what to say. So he gazed at Shilian. Shilian didn't know what to say either and only sighed, turning around to leave. Behind him came Guzi's incessant voice. Gege, where's my dad? He's still around, right? He said he's already cultivated to be the most powerful king of the three realms. He can't die. He's still around, right? The annoying Chirong finally disappeared. Yet not only did Shilian not know what to say. At the moment, he couldn't understand what he was feeling. To be honest, if you thought about it closely, Chirong's words seemed to be irrebukable. Ever since they were young, he really didn't regard this younger cousin of his very highly. At first, he felt sympathy for Chirong. Later, it was exasperation, headache, and he did his best to ignore him, out of sight, out of mind. But if it must be said he looked at Chirong with contempt, then that seemed fairly accurate too. It wasn't just contempt. He had also once hated Chirong so much he wanted to crush his ashes and scatter them all over the world. But having lived for so long, having experienced so much, when he looked back at Chirong, there really was nothing left except annoyance and fatigue. Perhaps there was a little contempt, but that no longer mattered. No joy, no grief. They continued their search, but it was fruitless. After they came down from the wreckage, Shi Qingshong had already been waiting on the ground for a long time. Your Highness, how is it? We didn't find him. How can that be? The heavenly official started discussing. Could he really be dead? Turned to ashes or something? If he's hiding, then that's too scary. Where can he hide, though? There's so many people watching. Shi Qingshong looked around and said, Your Highness, I have a question I've been waiting to ask since earlier. Where is Nan Yang and Zhang Jin? It was true. It seemed no one had seen Feng Shen or Mu Qing for quite a long time now. The heavenly official started chattering again. Well, those two generals couldn't be the same as General Pei, right? Stuck in their own palaces in the heavenly capital and didn't come out. Well, that's impossible. I saw General Nanyong come out. Besides, he was looking for someone at the time. Qirong can't be dead. What about his ashes? He can't be dead. No. I don't want to think about Qirong being dead. Who's going to take care of Guzi? No, he's not dead. I don't believe it. Chapter 229, Adroit Dice. Snake eyes rolled, alarming the heart. Shilian whispered to Hua Chong, I don't know what's going on with Mu Qing, but Feng Shen is looking for Zhan Lan and the fetus spirit. He couldn't have stayed behind the heavenly capital, not leaving with the other heavenly officials, and ended up trapped in the flooding and burning up as they went, and down to the heavens and the earth. Or worse, maybe both of them were currently in the hands of Jun Wu. Just then, the Goshi walked over from the side. Your Highness, there's no need to keep searching. If he's here, then there's no reason to hide. There might be a lot of people here, but there aren't many worth paying attention to. And since he's not here, then he can only have gone to one place, and it's a place he'd want you to follow him to. Shilian understood. Is it Mount Tonglu? Goshi nodded. Perhaps he activated the distance shortening array. Besides, the heavenly capital, that's the domain where he's most powerful. You're going to Mount Tonglu? That horrifying place! Shi Qingchong exclaimed. We've already gone once, Shilian said. It's all right. It's not that scary. Maybe Feng Shen and Mu Qing are there too. But the Goshi warned, don't lower your guard. When you go this time, there won't be the same things waiting for you. After a pause, he said, I think I'll go with the both of you. Yes! Best if you could also find a few dependable martial gods to help. No one that's injured. If they're injured, they'd be dragging you down even if they went. Then that was a real challenge. Dependable martial gods? Shilian wondered. Maybe there were several dependable martial gods before, but now there weren't many left. Fallen, charred, some missing, some with a child hugging their leg wailing. Hua Chong said, there's no need to look for any helpers. They're all useless. Gege and I are enough. It definitely won't be enough, the Goshi said. Pei Ming objected from afar. Crimson Rain Sought Flower, can you please not say something like, they're all useless, with such confident, believable tone? Shi Qingchong also laughed heartily. Oh, General Pei, you're so badly burnt. You didn't even cut down as many rats as the Lord Rainmaster, so what are you complaining about? He hadn't seen Pei Ming in a long time, but Shi Qingchong found pleasure in taunting him. Having been stabbed where it hurt, Pei Ming couldn't do anything and only became more depressed. Just then, a voice suddenly came. Wait, me too. I'll go too. The crowd parted to see, and only then did they notice the one who spoke was Mu Qing. Since who knows when he'd been standing at the very back of the crowd. Shilian saw him emerge and breathed in relief. Well, Mu Qing, when did you come? Where'd you go earlier? I thought you went missing too. Mu Qing said, I've always been here. Hua Chong crossed his arm and gave him a side-eyed look. Always been here, but you didn't speak and you didn't help either, huh? Mu Qing replied dryly, I said I've always been here. It's just I didn't speak and none of you saw me, that's all. However, there were several occasions when they needed people and he was never found. Even when he was called and never answered, which is why everyone thought that General Zhang Jin had gone missing. Shilian was still hopeful that perhaps Feng Shen would still be in the crowd too, but they didn't find him after a search. Feng Shen really wasn't there. So he can only say, all right, you're coming along to help? That's great. There's finally someone useful. I don't trust this. Thus, Mu Qing approached. Seeing that he was coming along, both Goshi and Hua Chong's expressions were amazingly the same for once. Both of them had disliked Mu Qing from a long time ago. There was no need to speak regarding Hua Chong's case, but Goshi hadn't quite wanted to take Mu Qing on as a disciple from the beginning. Even by the look of things now, it could easily be guessed that instead of having a helper like Mu Qing, he'd rather not have any helpers at all. Mu Qing couldn't have been ignorant of their attitudes, but after he approached, he still bowed his head to the Goshi and said quietly, Master. Goshi nodded and didn't say much. After all, it wasn't like Mu Qing had done anything heinous or criminal. Since he was coming to help, there was no reason to stop him from going. The Goshi turned to Shi Qingchong. His Highness's divine statue will guard this place. The resentful spirits still need a few days to be purified, and since there's so many hands here, watch over the array well yourselves. Shi Qingchong nodded. Oh, but of course. Oh, but wait, Elder, I've asked you this many times already, but will you please answer me? Just who are you? Goshi didn't answer. The group followed Hua Chong and walked to the front of a mansion on the side. Hua Chong easily tossed the dice and was just about to open the door when unexpectedly he took a casual glimpse and his colors changed slightly. Shilian was sharp and caught it. What is it, Sanlong? Is the distance shortening array not activating? Hua Chong snapped back to himself and smiled. No, it's rare for me to roll out this kind of result. He opened his palm to Shilian. Shilian pressed close to look and was also taken aback. Upon the pale white palm was a lonesome dice, and what it showed was 1 dot. When Hua Chong rolled, it had always been 6 bright dots, and snake eyes were truly very rare. Shilian's heart trembled. What does this roll mean? Did you roll by mistake? Based on past experiences, this means there's something extremely dangerous waiting for me ahead. Shilian's heart lurched a bit. Behind him, Goshi said, haven't I told you young people so many times that gambling is bad, and to break that bad habit, you play cards, sir. Your Highness, do you see what sort of bad habit he's picked up? A bad omen. But Hua Chong still looked unperturbed, and he tucked away the dice, smiling. It's just a reference. It doesn't matter what I roll. Whether it's dangerous or not is my say. Then he opened the door. Let's go, Gege. He turned and was just about to cross the threshold when Shilian subconsciously reached out and pulled him back, almost blurting, don't go anywhere. Don't go anymore. But without thinking, Shilian knew it was impossible. In the end, he only said, let's go. But don't leave my side. If anything should happen, I'll protect you. Hearing this, Hua Chong was stunned. It was a good moment before the corner of his lips curled and he gave a big smile. All right, Gege, remember to protect me. Mu Qing watched on the side, his eyes unreadably upset or disgusted. The moment Hua Chong opened the door, a wave of scorching heat came lunging at his face, putting out any strange expressions. The volcano had erupted not long ago, and the flying dust and ash covered the skies, hadn't yet dispersed. Where there used to be forest and earth was now set ablaze, the fire devouring all that was alive, looking like fiery hell, crimson all over. Mount Tonglu had lost all of its former appearance. Shilian and company emerged from a rocky cave that was sitting on a higher hill, and the moment they came out, they almost suffocated by the ash in the air. Is he really here? Probably somewhere near the kiln, Mu Qing said. The volcano's erupted. There's probably nowhere near the kiln to stay. But the Goshi said, I know where he is. If that place wasn't destroyed, then just follow me and you'll see when we get there. I don't trust Mu Qing because Mu Qing had a discussion with Jun Wu that we didn't find out anything about. Did he make a deal with Jun Wu? I don't trust Mu Qing. I just can't. No. The group followed after him, descending from the tall hill, and Hua Chong walked in front of Shilian the entire way. Where there was rubble and tall weeds that made the steps difficult, he'd go up first to flatten the path before turning around to reach for Shilian, helping him down. Otherwise, Shilian probably would have descended much faster, slipping from the tallest point of the hill and rolling down all the way to the bottom. Yet unexpectedly, Shilian didn't slip. Another person did. Mu Qing was bringing up the rear and lost his footing, his figure swaying. Shilian was closest to him. With his fast hand, he caught him. Oh, watch out! Mu Qing jolted slightly before seemingly to return to his senses. I know. Shilian let go, thinking that Mu Qing certainly was behaving oddly. He turned his head and suddenly remembered something, and with a quick jog, he came to Hua Chong's side and whispered his question. By the way, yes! By the way, Sun Long, back at the top of the snowing mountain when Feng Xin and Mu Qing were fighting, what did you hear them say? Why were you so suddenly angry? Hearing this brought up, Hua Chong's face turned slightly cold, but it was concealed a moment later. Oh, that. They were just talking without thinking and said some disrespectful things about Gege, that's all. What? Shilian said, like what? Gege doesn't need to know. MXTX, how dare you! MXTX, Gege doesn't need to know. Hua Chong said, it'll dirty your ears. Come, we're down. You better freaking tell me what they said. You can't bring it up and then act like it's nothing. Grah! The four of them had descended from the tall hill, and after walking a bit, their path was blocked by a river. What was flowing in the river wasn't clear water, but crimson red fluids that were still bubbling. It was scorching lava. With this burning temperature, normal people didn't even need to fall in. Just going near, they'd die from the radiating heat. Fortunately, none of them were mortals, so they could endure this bone-melting land. The Goshi kept wiping at the sweat of his face. Well, it should be right across. This place used to be a moat, but now it's become like this, so we won't be able to cross. We'll probably need something to help cross the river with, Shilian said. Thank God I have one more chapter, but what the fudge? Chapter 230, Adroit Dice, Snake Eyes Rolled, Alarming the Heart, Part 2. If that giant stone divine statue was here, then they could have swiftly crossed with a few giant steps. But it was left behind by Shilian at the royal capital to guard and suppress the vicious spirits. And those 3 mountain spirits had already transformed it into a sword, so it was best that they didn't come. San Long, can the silver butterflies bring us across? Shilian asked. With the steam of the lava, the silver butterflies might melt halfway across the river, Huachong replied. It wouldn't look good to fall from mid-air halfway through the crossing and crash headfirst into the heart of the lava stream. However, Huachong added, but there's a ready-made path. The group turned their gaze to where he was looking. A moment later, Shilian exclaimed, why are there people in the lava? It was the absolute truth. Shilian wasn't hallucinating. Just now, in the instant, he saw a tragically pale hand roll out of the lava, reaching towards the sky. Oh, is it the statues that Huachong made of Shilian? Upon closer inspection, Mu Qing said, they really are, and not just one. There were at least over 1,000 people. A number of bodies and heads were floating upon the surface of the river, some rolling and turning by the current of the lava stream, and there were some flowing against the current. Their bodies were all peculiar white, their faces blurred. They were not actual living people. Shilian figured out, they're the empty-shelled people from the royal capital of Wuyang. They've been flushed out by the lava. By their martial skills, it shouldn't be too difficult to use the empty-shelled mutants as stepping stones and leap over. Okay, what's that? Only these deceased spirits have been tormentedly struggling in the burning lava, so it'd be rather tragic if they had to be stepped on too. But they didn't have time to worry about that now. Mu Qing went forward first. Now, see, that's also suspicious. Mu Qing going first? Really? He aimed for the right positions, and with a few ups and downs, he soon crossed the moat, standing on the shore on the other side of the river, looking back their way. Shilian turned to Goshi. Let me take you across first. The Goshi wasn't a martial god, after all, and wasn't one who practiced martial arts, so he needed someone to take him. He nodded and went forward. However, Huachong spoke up, Gege, let me. Going with the flow, Shilian acknowledged, all right. Thus, Huachong went forward and held onto Goshi's arms as if he was assisting an elderly senior. Goshi, sir, please, watch your step. Is he trying to get on good graces with him? Really? The Goshi turned his head and saw the one assisting him wasn't Shilian and his brow. Why is it you? Shilian guessed that Huachong was worried. It might not be convenient for Shilian to take another person along. Also, Huachong wanted, for the sake of some particular goal, to show himself off a little in front of the elder, to demonstrate some attentive diligence, which was why he offered to take over. Oh my God! Saying this, Shilian couldn't help but puff a laugh, hiding it with a light cough. San Lan said very sincerely that he wanted to assist you, so I... As for Huachong, he said with a smile covering his face, does it matter if it's me or Gege? Besides, I respect you very much, sir, so of course I don't mind assisting. This is nothing. What the fudge? The Goshi was speechless for a moment and then said, if you really do respect me, then put away that fake smile on your face. That fakeness really is too much. Huachong immediately put the smile away. Oh. Then, without another word, he carried the Goshi, and with a flash, their forms had already moved to the other shore. His movement was freakily fast, and before Goshi could react, he was already standing by Mu Qing's side, completely stunned. As for the empty-shelled people Huachong stepped on with his boots, they didn't notice they'd been stepped on at all. They only looked up to nothing above them, puzzled as they rubbed their heads, continuing to swim in the lava stream. Senses finally returned to the Goshi, and he glanced at Huachong, giving him comment, not bad, I suppose. On this end, Shilian thought, oh, that's too strict. How can his skills be only not bad? And then he called off, I'm coming over too. Huachong turned around, Gege, stay there first, I'll come get you. But Shilian acted faster than his words. He had already moved, leaping upwards, and his toes lightly tipped on the stomach of an empty-shelled mutant who was floating with his face looking upwards. He felt the solid body beneath his feet dip, and then he already leapt out again, tipping on the head of another empty-shelled mutant ahead. In this manner, he had stepped over 5 or 6 of them and came to the center of the lava stream. Just as Shilian was about to make another leap, his body sank abruptly, almost losing balance. After using his incomparably fast reflexes to steady himself, he looked down. The mutant beneath his feet had actually reached out and caught his boot. Oh no, not again, Shilian groaned inwardly. His terrible bad luck had struck again. The people before him all crossed the river just fine, but it just had to be him who ran into a difficult monster, seizing his right ankle, not letting him jump. The empty-shelled mutants could only float on the surface of the lava stream because they were hollow. They couldn't support too much weight. With steam boiling, Shelian was sweating profusely, and the corner of his sleeve actually caught on fire. If he continued to remain, then he, along with the stepping stone, were all going to sink into the lava, and his entire person would catch on fire. At the last second, an idea came to Shelian in this time of crisis. Rui came flying out, catching another empty-shelled mutant from about 3 feet ahead and dragging it over, and he stepped his left foot in the back of the mutant. Thus, the two stone empty shells supported the weight of the one person, increasing his buoyancy so he wouldn't immediately sink. Crisis averted, Shelian thus pulled out Fang Shen and slashed away the arm that was seizing him. He was about to leap out again, and a red shadow had already flashed to his side. Shelian said, "So long, I'm already fine. You didn't need to come over." Wachong used a palm and blasted the hollow mutant that had caught Shelian to pieces. "Let's talk after we're ashore." The two came to the shore, and Shelian said, "Oh, I'm sorry I made you worry." "It's my fault," Wachong said. "I should have told you to wait to get you before I crossed." All right. Goshi chided. Break it up. His Highness isn't that weak. He can handle himself just fine if you didn't go over, so why do you have to go get him? Come this way. The group climbed ashore, walked for another while, and came to the palace of Wuyong. Half of the palace was buried in the ground, and after the group entered, the path was slanted, going straight into the deep recesses of the underground. I don't like this. Having left the above ground, the scorching air gradually cooled down. The entire underground palace was empty, and even the smallest movement would echo and reverberate. The group each ignited a palm torch separately, illuminating the surroundings. Although this palace had been sealed away for a long time, it was still considered considerably majestic and sumptuous. The firelight reflecting many golden shimmering patterns, sculpted columns, and painted buildings. However, without a soul, the air was dead, like it was a giant mausoleum. "This is where His Highness grew up," the Goshi said. "Is he really here?" Muqing asked. "What do you think?" Goshi replied. "This is where his powers are the strongest, so watch yourselves." Nope, not liking this. Just then Shelian noticed something. Upon Huachong's waist, the silver eyeball on the hilt of Yiming was spinning rapidly, abnormally agitated. However, Huachong's expression was still cool and focused, ignoring it completely. Shelian couldn't help but reach out to pet it, and only then did Yiming somewhat calm down. Huachong looked down slightly, and we saw Shelian's hand was still resting on the hilt. He looked like he was about to speak. Just then, from the corners of the great hall, came a series of cackles. It was the voice of a middle-aged man, sly and cunning, like it was scheming something, making all the hairs on Shelian's neck stand, and then he'd heard that voice before. It was the voice of the fetus spirit. Muqing shouted, "Over there!" Muqing hurled out a trail of flames, brightening the space before them. They could see a lump of something white pressed against the tall corners of the palace, ceiling like a gecko. It was the fetus spirit, its long, bright tongue licking its own back like it was scratching its own itch. When it saw the flames flying by, it snickered and spat something like puke towards Muqing. Muqing dodged it, his expression full of contempt. Goshi looked at the sticky matter on the ground and then looked at the fetus spirit above. He said in disgust, "Is that really the child of that brat Feng Shen?" Shelian quickly called out, "Oh, wait. So, you're called So, right?" When the fetus spirit heard its own name, it paused for a moment and turned back to look at him. Shelian said, So, we've come to find your dad. Do you know where he is?" When the fetus spirit heard, "Your dad," it snorted. Using all of its limbs, it patted, crawled away, and disappeared. Shelian called out, So, quick, find it! The group immediately burned the palm torches brighter, searching all around. Suddenly, Muqing exclaimed, "That way?" "Which way?" Shelian responded. Muqing pointed at a path. "I saw it went there just now." The path he pointed at was on the side of the palace building, a narrow and long corridor, haunting and gloomy. Even if they couldn't tell where it led to, it was obvious it wouldn't be any place good. Huachong suddenly said, "Did you really see it went in there?" Muqing replied irritatedly, "What good would it do me to lie to you?" Huachong hawed, but it contained no emotion and it didn't sound friendly. The Goshi chided, "What are you both fighting over at a time like this? Don't overlook anything suspicious. Even if we just take a look, it's fine." The long corridor was very narrow. It must have been much wider once upon a time, but seemed to have been crushed and now could only allow one person to pass at a time. Perhaps Mu Qing felt indignant over the tone of doubt in Hua Chong's voice earlier, so he went in first. I don't trust this at all! Hua Chong very naturally walked in front of Shi Lian to open the path for him. But Shi Lian noticed that Ming's eye on Hua Chong's waist was spinning wildly again. His mind stirred and he instantly pulled Hua Chong behind him. Hua Chong was surprised. What is it? Shi Lian softly cleared his throat. Didn't I say I'll protect you? Stand behind me. A moment later, Hua Chong laughed softly. As they walked deeper, Shi Lian felt more and more uncomfortable. When it came to danger, his instinct was extremely acute, and what was making him uncomfortable was coming from up ahead. Goshi, do you remember where this path leads to? Shi Lian asked. How come the more we walk, the more I sense there's a very heavy, murderous aura? And it wasn't a lively, murderous aura, but a very cold and frozen one. The deeper they went, the more tense he became. However, the Goshi didn't answer him. Something clicked in Shi Lian's mind. He raised his voice again. Goshi! There was no answer. Shi Lian whipped his head around, since who knows when there was not a soul behind him. The reason why he hadn't noticed sooner was because both the lantern lights that Hua Chong and Goshi had released were still floating in the air, shuffling and following him, lighting the way for the masters that had now vanished. Mu Qing looked back too, and he was shocked. Well, where's the crimson rain sought flower? Shi Lian strode out without another word to go back the way he came, and Mu Qing caught him. What are you doing? We're almost there. Besides, do you really think the crimson rain sought flower would go back? No, Shi Lian replied. It was precisely because Hua Chong would never go back on his own without a word that it was scary. Shi Lian suddenly recalled the thing Hua Chong had left on his person, and he hastily raised his hand to look. When he saw the red string on his third finger was still bright and vivid, indicating Hua Chong was fine, he sighed in relief. Yet when he remembered the snake eyes that Hua Chong had rolled out before they came, the tension of his brows increased. You'll most likely find nothing if you go back, Mu Qing said, so why not continue forward and see what is inside? Otherwise, wouldn't you be wasting your time if you went back and found nothing and had to come back again? Shi Lian was just about to speak when he held his breath. Shh, listen, what is that sound? It was the sound of a man breathing deeply and quietly, and it was coming from ahead. The two were high on guard, each gripping their weapons tight, and they walked forward. They finally emerged from the long corridor and came to a chamber. Mu Qing carefully felt around, and Shi Lian flicked a finger, sending a small flame light to the front, instantly illuminating a figure slumped on the ground. The moment he saw the back of the figure, he recognized and rushed up. Oh, Feng Shen! Flipping the man over, it was indeed Feng Shen. He was covered in burns and gashes all over his body, but his life shouldn't be in danger. Shi Lian patted him for a good moment before he slowly came to, and the moment he woke, he cursed, but realized it was Shi Lian before him. Then he stopped cursing. Your Highness, why are you here? Shi Lian huffed a breath. Why didn't you tell me first where this is? Feng Shen sat up and looked around. Where is this? As expected, Feng Shen didn't know either, so Shi Lian asked for nothing. Shi Lian shook his head and reached out. Get up first. Now that we found you, we've got to go look for San Long too. Are you talking about the crimson rain sought flower? Feng Shen asked. What happened to him? Why is he not with you? Well, it's like this, Shi Lian started. We were together. Before he finished, Feng Shen suddenly raised his hand. Wait, who's that behind you? Shi Lian looked back and only saw a figure sunken in the shadows, unmoving. Well, that's Mu Qing. What is it? Feng Shen's pupil suddenly shrank. Seize him, quick! Ah, damn it, son of a bitch! No! Ah! Ah! Are we surprised that's where the story ends? I said, brr, it's cold in here. There might be some betrayal in the atmosphere. Ha ha! Now, okay, I'm going to be honest. Did I think this entire last two chapters that Mu Qing was being very, 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 very suspicious? Suspicious? Yes. Yes. Do I think there's probably some people in the comments that are going to be like, Mu Qing is amazing. Why can't you give him a chance? And I'll be like, because he's freaking suspicious. That's why. Here's the thing. I want to like Mu Qing. I really do. He has a great design. There's that little gif on Twitter where he's coming in the Dongwon. It's like, it's Britney, bitch. And he's like just doing this. Like, I want to like Mu Qing so much. But he doesn't make it easy at all. Muqing does not make it easy to like him at all. He's super suspicious. Something's going on. All that, like the moment they were like, let's go back to Mount Tonglu, I'm like, let's just go walking right back into that trap. Now, why don't we do that? Right? Because, Jun Wu has the high ground there. It's his home turf. These chapters, what a way to go out. Oh my God. And this is all leading up to the climax. Like the climax happening on Mount Tonglu in volume 8. That seems likely. Like I said, I talked about it last week, but it very much has that Modao Zushi feel where we just had a giant battle and seemingly the day was saved, but we don't have time to celebrate because the real final battle is happening in this very much more secluded, intimate location. I like that MXTX does that. This is the second time they've done it. They did it in Modao Zushi, and now they're doing it here, where you have these big epic battles on this grand scale, and then the action concludes, and you're like, well, in a normal story, that would be the end of the story. And it's like, okay, well, we wiped our hands of that, solved the problem, and here we go. But MXTX does something cool where their stories are so intimate and they're so personal and so heart-to-heart, one-on-one, lots of interpersonal communication. And so they don't just have this grand sweeping battle be the final rub. They're like, okay, now we've done that. We've satisfied those of you that want that. But the real finale is going to be in this little secluded location with like 6 people. And we're going to let those 6 people work it all out. And it just so happens that the 6 people are really the 4 we started this story with, along with the Goshi and Jun Wu. So imagine that. So yeah, there's a lot going on, and I'm going to maybe revamp this board a little bit. I don't know. I'm probably going to wait till we're going to erase a few things off of here, I think, because we get a little bit of answer with some things. We're going to talk about Rong. We're going to talk about Rong. I'm in denial. He can't be dead. I refuse to believe that Rong is completely dead. No. What about his ashes? His ashes weren't destroyed, were they? No. I want him to come back as a little greasy ball of ghost fire and raise Goozy. Come on now. Don't leave Goozy all alone. Lan Shan Chu, go find him. We're going to talk about it. But wow, these 5 chapters were quite a bit. And I had to put on a coat because it is cold in my house right now. And it's very, very cold. And I needed to put on a jacket. And my dogs have been quiet the entire time I was reading. And now they're like, okay, bitch, play with us. So, oh my God. So they went going back to, there were so many just little reveals, like the fudge, like just, they had to hurry back to the capital. So Yin Yu, let's move Yin Yu around here. Yin Yu is with, Yin Yu's fate. We're going to put Yin Yu and, Qiying. What about them? I guess they're gonna, we still have the cursed shackle to deal with, so I'm gonna put that on here, the cursed shackle, because Jun Wu supposedly still had it, and we need to get it to get back to Yin Yu, possibly to save him, if it has a soul in him. And I feel bad for Chan Yijin still, because he's gonna wake up with the corpse of Yin Yu beside him while he's in a bone dragon's mouth. Like, that's so sad. I feel so bad for him. And he probably won't understand what's going on. So it's like, ah. So yeah, there's that. And then Shilian's like, we've got to go back and to the heavenly capital, to the royal capital, to stop the royal capital from being hit by the heavenly capital and Jun Wu. And so Hua Chong's like, fine, we'll toss out the dice and we'll head that way. I like that the heavenly officials were like, oh, should we go back? And Shilian's like, they're your constituents. They're your worshippers. Yes, we have to go back and save them. Come on. And I know they're not all of the heavenly officials worshippers, but it's like, you're a heavenly official. That's your job. Come on. Do your business. I love it. And so they go back. I like that Shi Ching Chong is trying to like hold it together, being like, oh, why is there this big monster here? What's going on? I feel bad for the former Windmaster because they don't understand what's been going on this entire time. And so they don't have a clue what's been happening elsewhere. And they're like, what's going on? And then here comes Shi Lian and Hua Chong being like, sorry that literal hell is raining down on you. We don't have time to explain. We have to help stop it, right? And then that is when Lan Chanchu shows up. I love that Lan Chanchu rushes out to help the Windmaster. It's like all the callbacks, right? There were so many callbacks in this chapter set that I was like, oh, and the first one here being Lan Chanchu, like old times back in volume 2, helping out the Windmaster. I love it. And so yeah, and then Pei Ming. Pei Ming in this chapter, in chapter 226 and 227, Pei Ming's story in this, I was living. I was loving every moment of the drama, the soap opera drip with him and the Rainmaster and Shanji. It just, I love when storylines finally, like, we're gonna wipe Pei Ming off of this, because at this point, I feel like the big mysteries with the characters, we're gonna wipe them clean, because some of these, I'm like, yes, we've gotten a little bit of resolution with some of these characters, not all of them though, but some of them. So Pei Ming and Rong Guang working together. Now, I'm not gonna lie, up until the Rainmaster showed back up, there was a part of me that was like, is this a ship forming? Is Pei Ming and the Rong Guang ship forming? Is he like, we can do anything together, you and I are gonna be best friends forever? And then the Rainmaster showed up and was like, well, so, because there's this idea of these like cursed individuals, and I'm just gonna put it up here. There's this idea of cursed individuals and their quote unquote divine partners that has been set up throughout this entire story, and it's like ghosts and kings, ghosts and deities. But we have, for example, we have Hua Chong, who is like the ghost king, and Shi Lian, who is the divine prince, right? And you could kind of reverse that, I suppose, where Shi Lian's the one that's cursed and Hua Chong is the supreme ghost king, so you could kind of reverse them, but that's a scenario. Then you have Jun Wu, or the Prince of Wuyang, plus the Goshi, who's kind of the divine one. I totally ship them. I ship them so hard. I'm like, the moment the Goshi was like, oh, I'll come back with you, I'm like, because you have to be there to bring Jun Wu back. I want you guys to make out and like run off together, and that way stop doing things like you and the three faces stuck to him. I don't know. We're going to talk about it in a second, but I totally ship them. I'm like, yes, please. You got that. You have the idea of, Pei Su and Bon Yu together, where she's the ghost and he's the former heavenly official. You've got that. You have Feng Xin that is with, that's with Zhan Lan. You have that. You just have a lot of partners. And then Beef Leaf. The unexpected return of Beef Leaf for like a hot second. I was like, more, but no, can't get that. So then we have Shi Qing Shang and Heshan, which we'll talk about for a hot second. But yeah, so we have all this. And so for a split second, I thought that it was going to kind of follow this same formula. And I was like, oh, is it going to be Pei Ming and Rong Guang? And that's going to be like and Ling Wen, the Brocade Immortal. There we go. I was thinking of one more at least. So you have Ling Wen and the Brocade Immortal. You have that idea. If Yin Yu dies and comes back somehow as a ghost, then I guess you would have Yin Yu and Qi Ying, but we don't know if that's going to happen or not. And then a lot of you weirdos, I'm joking. A lot of you people want to ship Qi Rong and Lan Chanchu, but that to me is the most dubious of ships so far. I'm going to wait it out till the end of the story. We'll talk about it in a minute, but I'm like, no. So, but we're going to talk about it in a minute. We'll hold on that. I'm going to make a point about that one. So for a second, I thought that maybe Pei Ming and Rong Guang were going to get caught up into this. And if you all ship Pei Ming and Rong Guang, I see it in this chapter. I'm like, oh, okay. All right. They finally got back together and they're just a bunch of bickering old couple. I see it. I personally prescribe to Pei Ming and the Rainmaster for reasons, which we'll talk about in a minute. But if you ship them together, I totally understand that, yes. But the idea that Pei Ming is fighting Jun Wu is insane to me. And obviously, We've seen Pei Ming be powerful throughout the series, but it's always been foreshadowed since early on that Pei Ming is not as strong as he could be because he doesn't have a sword. And so we finally get to see him with a sword, and it's like, yeah, he's freaking strong enough to battle the Heavenly Emperor. So, the fudge, right? Insanity. And that's when Ming Guang's like, what is this green thing? Don't block my way. And the thing about it is, I actually kind of felt bad for Chi-Rong in this episode, in this chapter set, because he was just like, he didn't have anywhere to go, and he was a coward, and so he was just hanging around, but he tried to tell Jun Wu to stop the flame so that Guzi wouldn't get burnt. And I was like, oh, well, that's really sweet, kind of in a weird, twisted way for Chi-Rong. And for Chi-Rong to use his body, and I know they talked about how, like, it could have gone either way, but the fact that he used his body to shield Guzi from dying, that, like, my little heart, it kind of broke a little bit for Chi-Rong. I was like, that was your redeeming moment. You sacrificed yourself to save Guzi when you didn't have to. And then that whole speech about him being his son, we'll talk about that. That may be my favorite part of this whole chapter set. I don't know. That one's really up there. But there's a lot of parts of this chapter set that I was in love with. So this chapter set, last week was such chaos, and there was just so much happening, and there was so much action. I was like, it was a lot, and my brain was just like, But this chapter set, I was just head over heels for so many parts of it, right? So yeah, he didn't want Guzi to get burnt. And he's like, Dad, it hurts. I'm scared. And then he's like, that's when Guzi says, even your domain, it's very beautiful. It doesn't seem too great. The people here aren't too good to us. Why don't we find a different place to live? And the thing about it is that in a lot of ways with Guzi, with him in a lot of ways, it's this idea that Chi-Rong, how he was treated as a child, Guzi kind of mirrors some of that. And it's almost like Chi-Rong's getting a second chance to, like, raise somebody like himself. And it's weird, and I love it. I'm like, what is happening? Chi-Rong is a dad. It all comes full circle. And I like that Shi-Lian, again, this is going to come back up. It's going to come back up again when we get to Shi-Lian dealing with the whole situation of Chi-Rong being gone and wondering, like, did I not do enough for my cousin? In the moment, we laugh at it when Chi-Rong is, like, on fire and burning, and Shi-Lian's like, Guzi! Like, in the moment, Shi-Lian doesn't care about his cousin. He cares more about the little kid. And then afterwards, when you think about it, Shi-Lian's like, yeah, I didn't care about him then. Ugh. And it's kind of like one of those, like, pull at your collar moments, right? But General Pei has caught on fire. And then I love the Rainmaster, chapter 227. The Rainmaster, like the Eurythmics start playing, and here comes the rain again, starts coming down, and the Rainmaster just leaps like Shi-Lian off a building to catch Pei Ming and his little bird. I love the effect of Pei Ming being like and like coughing the rings of smoke out as he's burned. This is why I absolutely am in love with Pei Ming and the Rainmaster. This is why I absolutely love them together. Because Pei Ming does not need somebody like Shanji. Shanji, as we find out in this episode, is super clingy. She goes off the deep end. Pei Ming finally has to confront her and be like, what do I have to say to you to get you away from me? Pei Ming does not need a Sage 5 clinger because Pei Ming is a womanizer. Right? He loves him and leaves him. And Shanji was the one that, she was the redhead from Wedding Crashers that you don't do that to. The Rainmaster could care less about Pei Ming. She is so sweet and kind, but she doesn't bat an eye. She just catches him in his, like, just charred form where he's not happy. His hair is like a mess. He just looks like a drowned rat. Like, Pei Ming just thinks he looks so ugly. And she's just like, it's okay, I'll protect you. And I love that because it's totally the opposite of what Pei Ming wants. He wants to be the man to, like, rescue the damsel in distress. And she's like, I'm not a damsel in distress. So, sorry, that won't work. I love it. I think it's so good. I love the idea that she just catches him and on her ox, and she's like, it's fine. And she goes, I love that Rong Guang is like, a woman saved you, aren't you embarrassed? And Pei Ming's like, shut up. And I love her response to it. She's like, it's okay. She's like, it'll be fine. Like, I love that because she's perfect for him. She doesn't care what he looks like. He doesn't have to put on airs. He doesn't have to be the strong, like, dude that saves her or anything. She's like, no, I'm fine. I'm good. And he doesn't know how to handle it. And he's just like, what? But I'm supposed to rescue you. And she's like, #feminism, I guess. Like, I love it. They're so perfect for each other. Ugh. It's great. And so then, yeah. And then that's when Hua Chong points to the other Hua Chong. Now, I thought all along that Hua Chong had left a puppet. Like, we've talked about this for several weeks now. I thought that Hua Chong had left a puppet of himself down there at the array to keep everything in order and to convince Jun Wu that nothing was amiss. Turns out he didn't exactly leave a puppet of himself, but he had Heshan come down there and pose as him. How much does Heshan owe him? Because not only does he owe enough to trash his lair, but Hua Chong's like, you're going to come and pose as me and go help the Windmaster out. And Heshan's like, okay. And there is a part of me that's like, that knew that Heshan wanted to help out the Windmaster, but that's the beef leaf shipper in me talking. So, you know, the shipper in you kind of wants to be loud and in charge with it, right? And then when he says deal with it yourself, and the fact that he like yanks him and throws him, and that's how he gives him the spiritual power from hitting him. I mean, one, Heshan hitting the Windmaster as Hua Chong makes so much sense because Hua Chong's like, I'm kissing nobody but Gege. Get away. Here's your spiritual power. You said we just had to tap people, whatever. There's that. Two, it's the idea that Heshan is deceiving the Windmaster by posing as Hua Chong, which he probably doesn't like, and giving spiritual powers back to Shi Qing Chong, who had his powers taken away. It's probably causing a lot of conflicting emotions for Heshan. And then finally, taking the Windmaster fan, which was broken, that he took when his brother was decapitated by him, and to give it back knowing it was going to bring up a wave of emotions and memories for the Windmaster. He probably feels awful about it, but Hua Chong's like, not my problem, help me. And then, yeah, he's like, he just turns and stares at him. And he's like, deal with it yourself. It's so good. I feel bad that he just leaves. And you know that the Windmaster wants to say something, but he doesn't get a chance to. So I'm going to leave. I'm going to leave the Windmaster. Where are they at? Are they up on here? We're going to put them down here. Yeah, Heshan and the Windmaster. We're gonna leave them there. Maybe nothing will come of it and we'll never see them again in this novel after this, but I want them to have another conversation, but I don't know if they will or not. Sad days. But the fact they use the fan again, and I love that the other people are like, oh, Fang, you're a god. And he's like, oh, well, of course, I wasn't lying, was I? And then he just walks away. Heshan walks away and just humps and turns around to leave. What's really sad is that Shi Qingshang is like joking with the others, and that's when he like looks up to question Heshan, but Heshan's already gone. I'm like, I want them to see each other one more time, but I don't know if MXTX is going to give us that. I'm like, it's so bad. But then like, I love that it's like Jun Wu takes their forces of their people from both situations. Like, Jun Wu gets the rats in the shells of people, which are absolutely disturbing, and makes them come at the people in the array. Like Jun Wu is trying everything to get this human face disease spread, and Shilian is able to hold him back and stop it. Now, the resentful spirits for the human face disease are not done. They've not been stopped. They're still there. The array is still there. Shi Qingshang and the other martial gods are still trying to help keep it together, while Shili and them are off taking care of Jun Wu. So it's still a problem. It's still a threat. But, oh my god, it's absolutely crazy that the rats all come out to attack, and then Hua Chong fights back with the ghosts from the Ghost City. I love the ghosts from the Ghost City. It's so adorable. I love it. I love that they all show up. And at first, before they arrive, Pei Ming is trying to like deal with the rats. And I got very much a Gimli and Legolas vibe out of Pei Ming and the Rainmaster, where Pei Ming is like Gimli and he's like trying to kill the orcs, and then the Rainmaster's like, that was 7, and Pei Ming is like, that still only counts as 1. I got that Legolas and Gimli vibe from the Rainmaster and Pei Ming. I love it. It's so sweet. And then just the idea that the Rainmaster's just doing their job and Pei Ming can't stand the fact that they've been saved by a woman. And I don't know what my dog is looking for, but he's going to lay down. But, oh my gosh, I don't know what's happening. He's like trying to toss a toy to me. But in any case, the Rainmaster. And I love that the Rainmaster is like, there's no reason for you to push yourself. And that's when Shanji shows up. And you know what? I am so glad that Shanji and Pei Ming finally got closure. I'm going to take him off of here. We finally got closure with Shanji and him. And I think we have closure with Banyu. Banyu and them are safe. So we got closure with them too right now. They're back. They're going to be okay. Kamo and them are all right. I like that Banyu saved Kamo and her. Banyu saved her fellow ghost friends, being like, I'm not going to let you die. It's fine. She's nice like that, Pei Ming. Deal. But Shanji, I'm so glad that he got closure, because yes, I did take pity on Shanji at the beginning of the story, and I was very much against Pei Ming. I was being a Shanji stan. But Pei Ming owns up to it. Finally. It's like it takes being humbled by the Rainmaster. Joking. But in any case, he finally like just says, it's time for you to wake up. Like, we're not going to be together. Yeah, I'm sorry that I left you, but you've done a lot of this yourself, and it's time for you to move on. It's just the equivalent of like Pei Ming telling his ex, being like, look, we're leading different lives. You need to move on and find somebody else, and I'm going to move on and probably get with the Rainmaster over here. I don't think so. I think that how I picture Pei Ming's story ending is I feel like Pei Ming is going to, like, he'll follow the Rainmaster around trying to make up for the fact that she's helped him. I feel like he's going to follow her around and be like, well, I've got to make up for all those times that you saved me. And she's like, that's not necessary. And he's like, oh, let me. And he's just going to, like, help her, like, rebuild her farmhouses or something. Do something like that. Come here, Huck. Come here. He's just standing in the door looking at me. But in any case, I like that. I feel like that's going to be the end. I honestly would be perfectly fine. Again, we're going to talk about Rong. I feel like if Shanji went after Rong, sure, but I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think her and Kamo are going to end up together. That's the thing. I think Shanji and Kamo could end up together. See, they could be a ghost couple. That'd be nice. Let Pei Ming and the Rainmaster be together. Let Shanji and Kamo be together. I think that would be perfectly fine. Right? So then we have the ghost showing up. I love the ghost that looks like a duck showing up quacking. I love the other ghosts, like the pig, the boar ghost. Like, it's like Spirited Away comes to assist. I love it because I love the idea that you have all 3 realms together trying to stopping Jun Wu from accomplishing his plans. You have the ghost realm with the ghosts that Hua Chong got to help. You have the heavenly officials there. You have the humans there. Like, all 3 realms working together to stop Jun Wu. And it's kind of sad for Jun Wu in a way, because it's like, if you think back to all those chapters before in this volume where Jun Wu was trying to stop the volcano and trying to help the people out of Wuyong, none of the heavenly officials would help him. Nobody would help him. And then he ended up failing and falling into this despair. And now you have Shi Lian managed, with Hua Chong's help, to get all 3 realms to work together to stop Jun Wu. Like, how would you feel if you were Jun Wu? Like, this kid that was your protege that you wanted to be, like, falling into despair and darkness suddenly got everybody to help. I'm like, oh. And maybe Jun Wu's happy about Shi Lian doing that. But I don't think so. I don't think he's happy about it at all, because he didn't act happy. He still tried to destroy everything, right? You know, but that's so insane, isn't it? And I love that the ghosts were like, hey, look, there's the Ghost King. He's with Shi Lian. They're having a great time. I love that the ghosts. I love the ghosts are just all about their supreme ghost king and Shilian being together. It is the best. I hope Shilian and Hua Chong have a house together in the ghost city. It's just, they're so happy around them, right? And so, yeah, then we have, before the start of chapter 228, Jun Wu coming back as the big Voltron with a sword. And so I like that Shilian's like, we have to have a sword to fight. And so that's when we first find out that Mu Qing and Feng Xin are missing. Now, when we last saw Feng Xin, he had been trying to find Zhan Lan, which I'm assuming she and the fetus spirit probably lured Feng Xin to Mount Tonglu or knocked him out and drug him away. And Jun Wu was like, yes, he's one of Shilian's closest friends. Let's use him as bait. Now, Mu Qing, here's my reason I'm so suspicious of Mu Qing. Because we got back when Shilian was dealing with Yin Yu and Chan Yizhen, we had the notion and the knowledge that Mu Qing was speaking with Jun Wu. We never found out what the results of that were. Like Jun Wu questioning Mu Qing, and he had spent the last several chapters trying to woo Yin Yu into joining his side and Pei Ming. And then Mu Qing is supposedly meeting with him, but we don't find out the results of that. I think that Jun Wu offered Mu Qing the right to be by his side. Now, the question is, did Mu Qing say, yes, I'll help you, and accepted the deal to be by Jun Wu's side? Did he do it for real because it was the opportunistic thing to do, and he's trying to trick Shilian? There's that possibility. Is he trying to trick Shilian to the point where he can then turn his back and try to sabotage Jun Wu like what Yin Yu was doing? Or is he going to, at the last minute, try to sabotage Jun Wu after he has a change of heart? I don't know. And maybe he's totally innocent. Maybe whatever him and Jun Wu talked about was just something like a totally innocent interrogation. Nothing came of it. It's funny that he wasn't tortured or killed like the others were. But who knows? Maybe nothing came of it. Maybe he's totally innocent. I'm just being suspicious of him for no reason. Maybe the climax and cliffhanger of this volume is of no consequence and we shouldn't be mistrusting Mu Qing at all. Who knows? We won't know till next week. So maybe Santa will give us the gift of Mu Qing being totally innocent and we're just blaming him for no reason. I don't know. But anyway, I love the idea that the Goshi gets the three mountains to come together and be the sword. As soon as he said it was from Mount Tonglu, I was like, it's the mountain spirits, because they don't like Jun Wu because he took their faces and spirits and put them on his face and they became mountains. Of course they don't like him. So that's interesting. And also the mountain spirits, I'm not surprised that the mountain spirits broke through the sword. I'm not surprised about that because the mountain spirits seem to be the three Goshi that are on Jun Wu, the Prince of Wuyong's face, have caused him distress the last several chapters. They seem to be like one of his weaknesses. So the idea that the sword is made of the spirits of those three individuals on his face, that doesn't surprise me that it could like break through his own sword and stop him. But still, that's a pretty damn powerful sword. And like what we did with the Blackwater in the last chapter set, we went to a more rural location away from the array, stopping the resentful spirits of the royal capital. I love the idea that the divine statue like opens its palm up and there's Hua Chong and Shilian there. Like the callbacks to the palm and the flower. I love all of that. I love it so much. And yeah, the idea that Shi Qingzhong is like, is everything taken care of? And everybody's like, where is he? And they're like, well, let's go up and search. And they ask everybody to stay back unless you're, unless you're not injured that much. Then otherwise you're of no good and you could be like a liability. But I like Lan Chanchu coming up and being like, General Pei, I've got something to do. Help take over for me for a moment. So yeah, so Pei Ming, who's like covered in soot, drowned like a rat, has been upstaged by the Rainmaster, is stuck in the human array and is like, I guess I'll stay here and help them now. So that's where he is right now. That's where he's at. Great. Maybe Pei Ming's showing he's an upstanding citizen of the Rainmaster. Maybe that's the case. I'm going to take the Rainmaster off because we found out she's at the battle. She's fine. Never saw a Thundermaster. I don't know where he is. But then, yeah, that's when we find the ball of green ghost fire. And we have this moment of Chi-Rong, the knight touring Green Lantern. Oh my god. This is one of my favorite scenes too. Is this scene where Guzi is telling Lan Chanchu not to kill his father. And Shi Lian's like, he's not your dad. And that's when we find out, when Guzi says, this is my dad. My dad used to be good to me. But then after, he was really good to me. And that's when you realize that, oh, Guzi's biological dad might not have been a great guy after all. And then he must have been terrible if Chi-Rong by comparison is good. And then Chi-Rong takes him under his wing. I mean, granted, it was human flesh, but he gave him meat. And then said that he would take him to live in these big mansions, and he was good to me. Scrap Gege, will you please save him? And I like that Chi-Rong is the ghost fire. I like that they describe him as a greasy ghost fire, like just a grease fire. Like that's what he is. It's such a term. And he's like, that black-hearted snow lotus won't save him. He can't wait for me to die. And Huachong is like, really? Why are we dragging us into this? And I like that Chi-Rong just goes off on him. He's like, what right do you have looked down on me? He's like, if I spit, he's like, so what if you all look down on me? I have a son. And I love that they both are like, one of my favorite parts of this whole volume. I think Chi-Rong's statement about being a dad is one of my favorite parts of this whole damn volume. But when he was like, I have a son, and when he's like, I don't care, he's like, you guys knocked out the Shanla bloodline. I'm going to take Guzi under my wing, and we're going to start a new bloodline. He's like, don't even dream of having a kid in 800 years, you impotent cowards. And I love that Huachong's like, you never know. That dialogue made me my favorite Huachong dialogue to Shi Lian in this whole series, where he's like, we could have a kid if we try really hard, Shi Lian. And Shi Lian's like, he's joking. I'm like, what are you talking about? Omegaverse, y'all. You know that MXTX could have made this an Omegaverse. She could have done that. Could have done it. Damn. Just like, he's like, well, we could try. And Shi Lian's like, what? How would that work, Huachong? I don't know how spicy the end of this story is going to get, but maybe in the extra chapter, who knows? But that's just hilarious. Oh my god. But I like that Chi-Rong disappears. But his ashes, where were his ashes? Were they not burnt? If this is honestly the end of Chi-Rong and he died defending his kid that he had adopted and standing up to Shi Lian and airing his grievances, I mean, it's a great way for him to go out, but I don't want Chi-Rong to be dead. Who's gonna watch Guzi? Is Guzi gonna have to be adopted by Lan Chanchu? Who's gonna watch him? I mean, what karma, what poetry if Lan Chanchu, the heir of Yongin, has to adopt Chi-Rong's like self-declared heir of the Shanla line, Guzi? What poetry, right? The reason why I say the Lan Chanchu and Chi-Rong ship is weird to me, because I never really saw it. I was like, well, yeah, Lan Chanchu wants to kill him, but how is that enough to make a ship? And we see some scenes with him, but not enough to really like resonate. But now I'm like, if Lan Chanchu takes Guzi with him and goes off to try to find Chi-Rong again to bring him his son, and the two of them somehow end up together at the end of this story, then I'll see the ship and I'll be like, okay, all right, y'all have won me over. But we still have to read volume 8, so no spoilers. Don't want to know if that's going to happen. We'll find out when we get to it. But if that's the case, I see you. But what an end! And Shi Lian, just thinking about it, he's like, yeah. He's like, I did have contempt for him. And there's a chapter called No Joy and No Grief from a few books back that Shi Lian, it kind of relates to this. The idea where he's like, I really didn't think very highly of him from a young age. Like, I never really gave Chi-Rong a chance. And then after he became a ghost, he was just this headache, and I didn't want to think about him. But he's like, yeah, I guess I did kind of look at him with contempt. Now he was just annoyance and fatigue. I was like, oh. And it's kind of melancholy, the idea that he may have lost his cousin and he just died out. But there's no point in thinking about it now. They try to find Jun Wu, and that's when the Goshi's like, yeah, I think I know where he's at. So the Goshi's like, yeah, he's at Mount Tonglu. And I like that the Windmaster's like, Mount Tonglu? You guys, you were there? I forget that the Windmaster has no idea what's been happening. Like, all of volumes 6, 7, and 5, 6, and 7, the Windmaster wasn't there. The Windmaster hadn't shown up since volume 4, which seems like forever ago. And then they're suddenly back here again. And it's like, yeah, there's been some things happen, just so you know. But the Goshi is like, it's not going to be the same as last time. I don't know where the fudge Bai Wusheng is. Where's Bai Wusheng in all of this? Is Bai Wusheng with Jun Wu? The version of him with that one? That's terrifying. If that's the case, no thank you. But yeah, before, when they went to Mount Tonglu, it was just Bai Wusheng chasing after them because Jun Wu was still in the Heavenly Capital, and it was just them fighting random ghosts to get to the kiln, and Bai Wusheng was chasing them. But now it's a lot different because now they're like literally going back. They're going into the lion's den. Like, they're walking down the steps into the lion's den in the dark, not knowing what awaits them. And that is absolutely terrifying. So, of course, everybody's beat up. Nobody's good to go to Mount Tonglu. Pei Ming is helping with the array. Lan Chanshu is dealing with Guzi. Everybody else is, like, just wiped out. Chan Yijin is, in a bonefish somewhere. And that's when Mu Qing shows up. And again, they've been talking about him since last chapter. Nowhere to be seen. And he finally just walks up being like, oh, the moment you guys mentioned about going to Mount Tonglu, I think I'll go. I'm like, and I also like the relationship between the Goshi and Huachong that is developing. Can we talk about that? Can we talk about the Goshi and Huachong relationship dynamic that is developing? We should, because it's amazing. So neither of them like Mu Qing. The Goshi doesn't trust Mu Qing. He didn't want him to come to begin with into the temple. And Huachong doesn't like him for obvious reasons because of how he treated Shilian in the past. Interesting, right? There was a part of me in this chapter set that wondered if Mu Qing somehow had absorbed energy from the kiln from Jun Wu like Huachong had. And I only say that because it just seems like the attitude that he has and the way the Goshi and Huachong react around him, it seemed like maybe that was the case, but I don't know. But anyway, he decides he's going to go with them, and they're like, well, we don't have a choice. Let's just go. And that's when Huachong is like, I like that Shilian, his face changes and he knows something bad, and Shilian catches it because he's been around Huachong so long, and it's that the dice rolled snake eyes. That's problematic. So that's curious because Huachong has never rolled snake eyes. He's always had really good luck. So basically it's saying if you go to wherever this is, then Jun Wu is probably going to try to kill you because you're like one of the only threats that's there to stop him. So you could be walking into your death. Do I think MXTX is going to kill Huachong? No, but I'm very nervous for him. I'm very scared for him. The only thing that made me feel slightly better was that Shilian could still feel the rope that was on him, like the string tying them together, and that's been like his little tether. As long as he can feel the string, it's okay. That made me feel a little bit better in this chapter set, but I'm like, I don't like the fact that they're separated again, but I'm going to have faith in MXTX because they were separated before and it worked out. And plus, I feel like now Huachong is separated with the Goshi. So maybe while the Goshi and Huachong are separated, they can bond. And Huachong can be like, look, I love your protege, Gege. I'm not letting him go. You're going to have to get over that. And Goshi will be like, fine, whatever. Maybe him and the Goshi will realize they're not so different, him and them. Maybe the Goshi and Huachong will realize they're not so different because the Goshi was like, oh, oh, Hwa-Chang gambles? Don't you know that's bad? Like, why are you dating a bad boy that gambles? That's a highly addictive, like, that's a horrible practice. He'll lose all the money. You won't have anything to pay for your mortgage with. And it's like, Goshi, you bet on cards and always lose. Maybe Hwa-Chang will try to earn brownie points with the Goshi and be like, hey, if you help me, I'll make it to where you win a card game and give you some luck. And the Goshi will be like, you know, maybe this will work out, right? If they make it out alive, I don't know, right? So they go, and again, there's a lot of things that Mu-Ching does that are highly suspicious. Mu-Ching has never been the one that's been like, oh, tally ho, let me go first into the fray. No, he's always the one that's hanging back and letting you go first, and then he brings up the rear. And that's not to say it's a bad thing. Sometimes, you know, you need somebody to bring up the rear to protect you, but Mu-Ching's never been the one to, like, volunteer to go first. And so for him to, like, as soon as he gets there, he's like, oh, well, they're near the kiln. We should go near the kiln. And it's like, why are you immediately wanting to go first to Mount Tonglu and first to the kiln? Like, what? And the Goshi's like, I know where he is. He's at the Palace of Wuming because that's where he's the strongest. And then it's like Mu-Ching, again, Shi Lian, like Hwa-Chang taking his time, helping Shi Lian around. It's very cutesy. And Mu-Ching is the one to, like, fall and, like, rush into the fray. And Shi Lian's like, he's acting weird. And then the audacity of MXTX, the gumption and the gall. The fact that not only have I had this stupid question about the Banyu puppet up on this board for months. Not only did MXTX have the gumption to not answer that question, but bring it up and deliberately not answer it, but the question above it about Feng Xin and Mu-Ching's conversation about Tonglu that I've been wondering about since, I don't know, back in October, MXTX is like, oh yeah, remember that conversation? That's probably important. We're not going to talk about it right now. And then Hwa-Chang is like, oh, well, you don't need to know. He's like, oh, that. They were just talking without thinking and said some disrespectful things. That's all. And he's like, it'll dirty your ears. Come on down. So Hwa-Chang's not happy about it. Apparently they said some disrespectful things about Shi Lian. Now, Feng Xin saying disrespectful things about Shi Lian, that seems weird. Mu-Ching, not surprised. But I'm like, what were they talking about? What did they say? What does that have to do with now? I want to know. I want to know, but we'll see. And so then, yeah, they use the people. What I thought was going to happen was that the divine statues that Hwa-Chang had built of Shi Lian were going to bob up and be the, like, little things they jump on to get to the other side of the moat to get to the Palace of Wuyang. That's why I thought this is pretty similar. It's just the shells of the people, and some of them are like floating on their back, and it seems like a video game level where they just bounce from person to person. It's very bizarre, but that's what ends up happening. And then Hwa-Chang tries. What I love about it is, okay, again, suspicious. Mu-Ching goes first. Weird. Mu-Ching volunteering to go first is weird. And then I love that Hwa-Chang is like, I'll help the Goshi. I want to get on his good side. I love that he's just like, for Hwa-Chang, who respects no one but Shi Lian. Hwa-Chang who likes no one but Shi Lian. Hwa-Chang who couldn't give a flying flip about anybody but Shi Lian. For him to be like, oh, well, I want to assist you. He's like, he goes, oh, I respect you very much, so I hope you don't mind assisting. The Goshi's like, what am I, an elderly man? Although it's funny, he looks like he's 20 and he's like 2,000 years old. He's like, put that fake smile away. I kind of like that because Hwa-Chang is trying to put on airs for the Goshi because he knows that Shi Lian really respects Goshi. And he's like, again, it's hard for me to imagine somebody, I don't know if this was Anime Annie or who said this, but I don't see Goshi as like a father figure to Shi Lian. It's too weird. He's like a grandpa. Which is funny because Shi Lian's 800 years old. He's like a grandpa. And so Hwa-Chang's just like, I feel like the meme where he's like, come on, grandpa, let's get across the moat. Go make out with your former lover. I feel like that's the case here. But I like that the Goshi calls out Hua Chong. He's like, quit being fake. Like, be real around me. I know my grandson likes you. Be real. And Hua Chong's like, oh, okay. Like, he's been trying to impress him and it doesn't work. You know what I just realized too? And I'm going to be doing a video in Janu Yaoi about this, but I know that yaoi is a Japanese term for men in relationships with other men, but Shilian and Hua Chong are old man yaoi. They're 800 years old. It's old man yaoi. We've been reading an old man yaoi from the start. Oh my god, yes. And then Mei Nian Qing and Jun Wu are old man yaoi. Sorry, I don't know. I guess Daddy Don Mai might be the better word for it. I don't know, but yeah, I like that. The Goshi's like, well, not bad, I suppose. You're at least adequate enough to take care of my grandson. Love it. I love the Goshi. If anything, at least Hua Chong and the Goshi being together, maybe they can bond before they get back with Shilian, maybe. And of course, Shilian's like, not again. Shilian has the worst luck. And I like that he's like, and I love that Hua Chong immediately is like, oh my god, it's my fault. I'm sorry. I should have came back and got you. I should have talked to you beforehand before you did something stupid like try to go with lava across yourself because you're a klutz. Should have realized this. Dang it. And then the Goshi's like, come on, break it up, make out later, get a room. I really like that. I've noticed some people in the Donghua for the comments for season 2 have talked about how they think that Hua Chong is too soft compared to the book. They think that he's like, I don't know if wumpified is the word for it or whatever. But they're just like, he's so soft around Shilian. He's more of a badass in the novel. And he is. But like, it seems like these where he's like, oh, I'm so sorry. It's like, no, it's still Hua Chong. It's just in the novel, his expressions are more internalized. And the Donghua is making them more visible. But it's still there. It's still the same emotions. Like, Hua Chong is absolutely 1000% whipped for Shilian and no one else. So, and the Goshi's like rolling his eyes over there being like, come on now. So then yeah, they go over into the palace of Wu Yang and see the fetus spirit just pattering away. And I like that Shilian tries to call it out by its name. Doesn't work. They're like, can you take us to find your dad? And he's like, psst, and then goes away and does that. Like, what a rebellious kid, this fetus spirit. And so they go this way. And Mu Qing's like, oh, went down that corridor. And Hua Chong, I like that Hua Chong is thinking the same thing we're all thinking, being like, did you really see it go down that way? And Mu Qing is like, well, why would I lie? And Hua Chong's like, I can't imagine why. And the Goshi's like, look, we don't have time for this. Let's just pick a hallway and go. If he says go this way, let's go that way. I like that the Goshi's like, whatever. Now, big question is, you know, if we're theory crafting here, is Mu Qing betraying Shilian by leading him to Jun Wu and to function in them? I don't know. Is the Goshi betraying Shilian by leading them in? I'd like to think he's not, but I'm not going to rule it out because it's MXTX and you never know. And we're about to enter the final volume where twists and turns are probably going to happen. So, But yeah, I like that they start taking off. And the corridor being long and narrow, it was giving me flashbacks to the monster in the Heavenly Realm when him and Yin Yu were digging through the tunnels, and then it ends up capturing them. Like, it was giving me all the vibes. I was like, I don't know. And then this murderous aura. And no answer, but Mu Qing and him end up going. And Shilian was going to walk back, but Mu Qing's like, no, we need to keep going forward. And then he's like, Hua Chong would never go back without a word. And so he sees the red string is still vivid and bright on his finger, meaning Hua Chong is fine. And so Shilian's like, okay, he's okay now, but those snake eyes are a problem, so what do I do? And Mu Qing is begging him to go forward. And it's just suspicious. And they find Feng Xin, but when they find him, he doesn't know why he's there. He's like, where's Hua Chong? Why is he not with you? And Shilian's like, well, here's what was going on. And he's like, who's that behind you? And then, yeah, a figure sunken in the shadows, not moving. He's like, oh, that's Mu Qing. And he's like, hurry up, grab him. So either it's not Mu Qing and it's something else. And Feng Xin is like, that's not Mu Qing, grab him. Or it is, and he's betraying them. So I'm probably going to have to wait till this next weekend before I can start volume 8. Maybe we'll have a Manhwa chapter by then. That would be great. But it is going to be so hard, y'all, not to read ahead. It's going to be so hard. It's going to be so difficult not to read ahead. I'm telling you right now, it's going to be ridiculous. It's going to be so hard to do it. I'm not ready. I figured out the chapters I'm going to read next week. It's going to be chapters 130, 231, 232, 233, and 234. A 4-chapter start, right? Pages 11 through 47. Why not? Why wouldn't we start out with a big section like that, right? Right? Oh, y'all. I'm not ready. I'm not ready for the final volume. And MXTX, what are you doing? But we've got to do it, right? So, I've talked for nearly an hour. It's fine. So, I hope y'all enjoyed this reaction and discussion. Oh my God. I'm so ready for volume 8. Next week, it's going to be Christmas time, and I'm so excited. So, I hope y'all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon with more Heaven Officials Blessing. Bye!